Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Club podcast. I am your host, as always, and I'm joined by these wonderful gentlemen. Let's see who we've got. We've got George,
Hello, folks.
Dallin,
Hey.
Gareth,
Hi, hello there.
and Jake.
Greetings, everyone.
And of course, I'm the host, Graham. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today, we're going to have our month-end conversation of the game we've been playing all month, which was Super Cloudbuilt, which was selected by Dallin. And so, just to launch things off, I'm going to throw things over to Dallin, and he can kind of give us a little brief of, Dallin, why'd you pick the game, and what are some of your initial thoughts, and we'll kind of bounce around from there.
Thank you. So this was, I think, last year. I ended up just looking for some new games to kind of play because I think there was a time where we were all kind of playing some games together or something. I was trying to find a good single player game. And I'm a big platformer. If you've heard the past podcasts, I've mentioned a few things of some platformers and stuff. And I saw something that was like a platformer, but it was a speed platformer. It was really fast. And I was like, okay, I kind of like the idea of kind of a really fast gameplay type game. And I saw a video. I saw that some people here, I think Gareth, that he had the game and asked him about it. And he said he never played it. So I played the original, and I really liked it. It was really fun. And then at one point, I did some research into the second one. And actually online, it said that Super Cloudbuilt was a sequel. So that wasn't right. So I ended up learning later on by actually hearing about from the developer that it's a polished and more gamey type version of it, where a lot of it is the same. And now I can confirm, now that I've played both, that they're very similar. So I wanted to finish up original Cloudbuilt with the group, but it's fun now that I have the perspective of both. So yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are today, wanting a fast platformer type game, and didn't realize how it would end up. So
Nice.
yeah.
So what are some initial, when you played, I guess we'll try and stick to the game club time frame. When you started into Super Cloudbuilt, what did you, because you had, if correct me if I'm wrong, but you played through the entirety of the original Cloudbuilt first, and then you started into Super Cloudbuilt for the game club?
So I was about 7 hours, I think, into 5 to 7 hours, I can't remember, into the original, and just Cloudbuilt. And I was like, all right, let's play Cloudbuilt because I want to finish it. Well, we ended up changing it to Super Cloudbuilt, but I don't know, so I ended up just putting in, the biggest problem with this was the ladder levels, and then the actual really, really last levels of the other one. So once we actually started playing it as a group, I only played, I think, the first level of Super Cloudbuilt. So I was still pretty fresh with you guys, but I was able to pick it up pretty quickly. If you look at my hours on Steam, I have less hours on this game because I already felt really familiar with the controls. It's spot on the same, just the gun's different. And I don't know if it answers your full question.
Well,
but yeah,
I was
started
just
up and picked it up fastly.
I see. Yeah, I was just wondering what your kind of first impressions were going over, how
Oh,
you enjoyed it.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so I was disappointed at first in Super Cloudbuilt because I don't remember in the beginning of the game like trying to find a gun and how they conveyed the world. That's one thing that I thought was kind of not so great. The symbolism in the second game isn't as on point as the first game, so I was kind of down, and I'm just like, dang it, we should have just played the original Cloudbuilt, the first one, because there was just certain things. But the more I played Super Cloudbuilt, there was just more to it, and then I was like, okay, it's almost the same game. There's just a few differences, but we could talk more about some big differences, mainly the symbolism. It hit me differently, the first one, about the character and her story. But
Okay.
but yeah,
Wait,
so at first I was disappointed, but it ended up flattening out.
Tell us more. So, because I obviously we played Super Cloudbuilt. We didn't play the original one. So what you keep saying that the semblance there, what is it you said? Symbolism is different. Yeah, in the second one.
Yeah, well, oh my goodness, I am spacing the main character's name. Is it Demi? Yeah, goodness, I'm spacing her name. I can't remember her name now. Oh my goodness.
Do they even say her name?
I don't know her name.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
not
know her name
sure.
either.
It's on the website. I went on the website anyway, but it starts off exactly the same. Some of the visuals are different, where it's like you wake up. Obviously, you guys know. Is it okay if I mention a little bit of the beginning? I
I
guess we're kind of
mean,
jumping
Yeah,
into it a bit.
it's a
Sure, I
full.
guess.
Yeah,
You-
go ahead.
You say
Yeah, of
whatever
course,
you
of course.
want, Dally boy.
So you pretty much your character, you just wake up as like a subconscious or a spirit. A lot of the community refers to it as it's just your conscious or your spirit, and you're wandering through this what's left of the remains of like a city, the remains of it from like a while ago, and then you end up finding like it ends up morphing into an operational hospital. So that's very similar. There's a little bit more jumping around. It's more involved a little bit, but very similar. But the second one I kind of got lost at first. The second one, but you go into a hospital, and in the first one, what you do is you find yourself. The room's very similar to there's a computer, and that's where your logs are. There's not a lot of stuff. This first one is much simpler, and I really liked that because it got right to like with gameplay. You just focus on the race, anyway. But in order you find your body just bandaged, very similar. So now you're just like, oh my goodness, like my character was destroyed, or is this even my character? And if you compare the hairstyles, it's the same. But how you select the levels in the original was you knelt down next to your body, and then you like kind of went into your body, kind of, and then it would show one world floating in the clouds in an abyss. And then the symbolism of it, I like to talk more about the symbolism and story when we get to it. I think it's just amazing that the original did more. But then the more you play, it branches out into different areas, which now I've learned is just the hallways in the second one, where
Right.
you're going into a hallway and you're walking away.
I see.
And I wasn't able to finish both of them entirely to the end because it's a butt kicker. But I've watched then research and videos to be able to finalize my thesis on the stuff. But yeah, that's one of the big differences I noticed was the symbolism is like it's almost like you're, I don't know, there's like an abyss. You're trying to figure out where you're at. Where in this second one, you're navigating through your hospital.
Right.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
That is. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say some more about that, but as you said, when we get more into like the story proper, I just want to get around to first impressions just before you kind of launch into it. But that is interesting. And I want to talk about that a little bit more too in depth.
Yeah.
I love the initial stuff with the gameplay though. It took me a while. I played keyboard. Did everybody here play keyboard?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
Some people
I
do
attempted
controller.
gamepad controller because I thought it might be more comfortable. The game is just too fast.
Too fast for
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I needed the
mouse.
and at least the mouse. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
not really anything else but the mouse. Just to be able to quick turn and look around at stuff. It's
Yeah. When you have to shoot and like change walls that are exactly behind you.
Yeah.
The mouse.
Although it
definitely
seems
was
like if
helpful.
you know what you're doing, then you could probably get away with a controller pretty easily, actually. But
Yeah. If you knew the level layout and you had high
Yeah, that's
sensitivity
the
on
thing.
and stuff, you could probably
Mhm.
get away with it. But yeah, for the most part, I think mouse would be the better option.
yeah, I was
Shoot,
disappointed when the controller didn't work out for me. I was really wanting to sit on the couch and just play this game, and it wasn't an option.
Right. Why don't
Wireless
you?
keyboard, man, just right there on your lap.
That's true. Hey.
I have done that before too, but then the mouse is always weird when you're sitting on a couch. Like when you
Yeah.
put do you put it on your thigh and then it like curves down at some point?
You got to get
try and
a
set it next to you.
you got to get a hard mouse pad. That's what you got to get.
Or I guess one of those
There you go.
TV dinner like fold out tables. that
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But then again, they're at a weird height, so you're like depending on where your
True.
couch is.
you
Anyway,
why don't you go ahead and
tangents.
give your first impressions then, Jake? Since you're kind of
my
getting into it
first
there.
impressions
Yeah.
of this game. I did not know what to think, but the opening part was pretty cool. I was very intrigued by the game. I did not like the art style really, like the animation and the rendering and everything is fine. I just didn't like all the noise and the art, and so quickly tried to fix that, and I did find that they have a low noise setting. I'm like, that is speaking right to me. Like I put it on low noise, and the game got so much easier.
Low
for me
visual
immediately.
noise.
Yes, there's literally not in the video settings, but in the game settings, there's a lot
Different
of
visual
render.
styles.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Huh.
rendering styles,
I
And
didn't know that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
first I tried simplified or whatever, and I was like, this looks exactly the same. And then I switched to low noise, and it just kind of like buffers everything. Graham
Ooh.
knows this more than anybody. I have a problem with too many lines and busyness in my
yeah.
artwork, and especially like it
This
doesn't
game
look
is
good at
the game's
It's a
aesthetically.
messier Borderlands. It's a
It's-
messier Borderlands look.
Yeah, it's a
it
cell
doesn't look good
shading.
aesthetically to me, and it also really messes with my interpretation of what's going on the screen, and I don't know what that is, but it's definitely a problem, and it was a problem in this game like immediately once it started to get any sort of complicated. I
Interesting.
was like, I can't understand what's going on the screen really. Like, so the low noise setting really helped that, and after that, I was like, yeah, I mean, this game is super well designed. Is the first thing I could say about it. Is it felt crisp. It looked crisp once I got rid of the part that I didn't like about it, and everything. But I just kind of knew I didn't like it though. Like it just wasn't for me, and I had no idea it was going to be as hard as it was. Like going through the opening part, even I had a little bit of trouble, and I was like, oh, maybe that's just because I don't understand some certain things, and that part was true. But yeah, my initial thoughts were, I hope I can make it through this game after I resolved all those other things. And
Sure.
spoiler alert, I couldn't. So this is strike 2 on my gamer card. If I get one more, I gotta burn that thing.
You're getting
and you guys
evicted
need to
from the
walk me down the
gamer
hall of
house.
shame with some paddles and just
Yeah.
There'll be enough pain. Well, the consequence will be just to actually finish this game because
Yeah.
that'd be
You know, I
amazing.
might try, but honestly, I almost went through a keyboard today. Luckily, I've got a few, but I actually picked up a keyboard today and set it back down, not correctly. Didn't lose any of the keys.
Well, I'm glad that
What-
your keyboard is retaining its
Survived
teeth.
cloud built.
It's yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
What was your first strike?
My first strike was Graham's game. What was it?
Oh, Nox.
Oh,
Nox. Yeah.
yeah.
Couldn't finish that one either.
Right.
But we still had a really good time playing multiplayer.
That's
But
true.
anyway, yeah. So this is my second strike on my gamer card.
Okay, well, we'll be keeping a track, and we've now made a punch hole in that little card there. So,
yeah, I need a punch card, and
Yeah.
when it gets filled up.
yeah, we're gonna kick you out of the gamer house. You can't be in the boys' house apparently. But yeah, so go ahead, Gareth. Tell us what some
Yeah.
of your thoughts were.
Yeah, so Dallin mentioned this before. It's not Super Cloudbuilt, but regular Cloudbuilt has been in my game inventory for like, I don't know, 5 years or something. I think I saw it on Super Sale on Steam at one point. And they're like, oh, it looks neat. Maybe I'll play it. And then tried it out for a little bit and didn't really understand it and didn't touch it again. Just like the way the platforming mechanisms are not totally, they are very different. And I had a lot of trouble with it. Just like Jake was saying, I really had struggled completing levels.
Yeah.
Especially after the first level, you suddenly have to keep track of your lives. And that made me very frustrated, where I'd get to a section, there's like all these lasers, and you've got a checkpoint system, which is great, but then you run out of lives and have to start the level over again. It's like,
Yep.
but why? Just
So totally
let
gated
me
me through
keep-
the whole game.
just
The
let me
original.
keep restarting.
The,
Yeah.
The
No,
original
this one
game
just-
had no lives.
Super
the original game
Cloudbuilt.
had
Oh,
no lives.
yes.
Oh, the
Super had lives though. That's one of the
Yeah.
changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I need the
didn't
baby
like
version,
that
please.
aspect. Yeah.
I was looking in the
Um,
settings so many times for like, where's the? I'm an idiot. Can you help me with
just
this
give me
game?
infinite lives, please.
Yeah,
That
just-
was one of the most
please.
stressful things. Is seeing like I have 3 lives left. I can see the ending. I can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like but George posted a video from the developers explaining how the mechanisms, the
That should be in the
mechanics work.
game. FYI.
Yeah, it really should
It
be
should
in the
be in
game
the
as
game.
like a
I
tutorial.
agree.
And they like sort of show some of those on one of the later levels where it's like most of the tutorials are in little kiosks that you have to go stand and read a thing.
Right.
But then sometimes there's messages that pop up that say like, jump off the wall while you're still high and moving fast so that you have more momentum. And I don't think I had seen that message until after watching that video. And even if I hadn't seen the video and seen that message, I don't think I would have really understood what it was saying,
Right.
because they're trying to be, I don't know, accurate's the right word, but sort of follow physics rules in terms of momentum. And I think they did a good job. After watching the video, I played one level and was like, oh, now I understand what I'm actually trying to do, and it makes a whole lot more sense. So it kind of clicked after watching that. So I'll need to go back and play a few more levels. So I didn't finish it. I went and found videos of the endings, which don't seem to do much for me. I had fun with the one level I played after watching the video that he just posted this afternoon.
Yeah.
I want
I
to
should've
play
posted
more
it
now
earlier.
that I've
I
seen
should-
So
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do want to
Should've posted it
say, I do want to say that about that video. Yeah, it was very helpful, but it really didn't. It was helpful in explaining more of what was going on in the game, but it didn't help my skill level. And
Yeah.
so right after I watched that video, same thing. Like I jumped in back into the level I was trying over and over again, and I made it past the initial part that I couldn't get past for like an hour. I'm not kidding. Like I'm trying to get past this, and I was just like, I do not understand this. I looked up a bunch of videos online. The YouTube videos I found were people struggling with the same thing. They were like they were like doing it in all weird ways and like climbing up the sides of something and like hanging on a wall and then like crawling down the wall for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Oh,
Where's the
that's
people
one
that
of
are
the-
good at this
that's
game?
fine.
And then I get the contrast of like the speedrunners of the game, just like bypassing half of the thing. So that was incredibly helpful, but I could still see the time commitment of my like raising my skill to be able to do that stuff was like just there was a huge gap there for me. So it did help in that sense, but
was
it's
too
still it's a very and even in that video he says it's a very unique game. He's like, I programmed all of the reactions to all the button presses differently than almost every other game that's ever been made, and I think that's probably true, because it does feel different, and it doesn't make it bad. It's just something that you have to get used to.
Right.
It's really responsive and unforgiving,
Yeah.
Okay.
especially the later levels.
So after watching the video and I had fun with that level, it's kind of the type of game that doesn't really click with me, where you're just trying to go through a level and there's not much. It just feels like a chore, kind of like, here's a level, go do it. Here's another level, go do it. After watching the video, I can sort of see where there's like the puzzle aspect to it, and so maybe doing a few more would increase my appreciation for the levels. But when I was doing it before the video, it was just like, this is a level, I need to figure out how to get through it, and then I'll have another one. And there's like 2 lines of dialogue after each level that doesn't really mean much or make much sense. Maybe it makes more sense as you go later into the game.
Sure.
Sounds like you
So I
relate to
could
the
s-
character. She says it a few times where she's like, it just doesn't end. It's just a level
It
after
just-
a level.
Why am I
Yeah.
doing this? She said
Yeah.
that a few times.
Does she say that? Okay.
Like not
So
not
maybe-
that exactly, but basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Yeah,
so
sorry,
I don't
go ahead.
really know what I think of it. Basically.
Okay. All right. Fair
My
enough.
first impressions weren't great. Watching the video was helpful, and maybe it would get better.
Okay. So George.
Yeah, so again, this is first impressions. My opinion of the game um, actually evolved, and I grew to love it later. But first impressions of the game is kind of what you guys have, what Jake and Gareth have said. Is I personally was coming at this. I saw what Dallin described it as, and I saw like the kind of screenshots of her running on the wall and everything with a gun. And I've played a lot of Titanfall 2, and I came at it with like Titanfall 2 mindset, and this game is nothing like that at all. And initially, like I am so glad that this game club exists, because I would have dropped this game after like a couple hours. If we didn't have, you know, something like this to talk about, I probably would have dropped it in my initial impressions. My opinion involved so much. But yeah, I kind of wanted to drop it because it wasn't clicking in my mind. I wasn't understanding it. It was making me feel like I was just dumb. Like I was unskilled and not good at video games. And I was just like, what?
Great job, Dallin.
How-
You stumped us all.
I was like,
I stumped myself. I can't wait to tell you.
He's flexing his gamer prowess with this choice.
Yeah, I was like, how did I not make that? Like a lot of times I'd be like, how did I not do that? Why is this happening? And I just didn't understand really the game and the intention behind it, the design philosophy, and really how to play it. Which I guess, you know, we'll obviously get into it a little bit, but that is kind of one of my main criticisms of the game, is that for a game with such a high skill floor and even higher skill ceiling from some of the speedrunning stuff, but already from the get-go, it's got an incredibly high skill floor. I think the tutorial could be tailored in a different way, and even just make it more clear from the get-go. Like, there's specific things you need to truly understand, and you kind of learn as you go in the initial tutorial before you even get your jetpack. When you wake up as kind of like this ghost or consciousness, like Dallin said. And it gives you like text descriptions, and then the character kind of talks about stuff as well. But it I don't think the text description itself was really enough, at least to convey to me what the requirements were to really understand the way the game plays and really understand what you're supposed to do. Like, I would understand, yes, like I have to press this button to do this one thing, but as I went later down in the game, like I understood, oh, you know, there's so many other things that matter and that you need to pay attention to. It's not just simply like execution of like the route buttons that you have to do, but like execution also as like to the angles that you hit things, to the management of your momentum, to the management of all these other things you have to kind of be thinking about. And I didn't get that for like the first, maybe not 2 hours, I'd say maybe for like the first hour. I didn't get it, and I was just like, okay. But I'm also very stubborn, as as we've said before, and I don't like to leave things like unfinished, and so like I was like forcing myself, just kind of headbutting my head against the wall till I beat some things, and finally I looked up some especially that video that, you know, I shared. That helped me click a lot of things and all that stuff. But yeah, again, initial impressions, they were not so favorable to the game. And I grew to love it. Like I'm so pumped to when we get to talk about level design, because I've loved to say a lot to say about that. But yeah, those
Sure.
were my first impressions.
All right. Well, I guess that just leaves me then. Wow, I have a really complex opinion on this game. Like a
Give it to us straight.
Makes sense.
way more complex than I initially thought it was going to be. When I first started playing, my initial impression was this is one of the worst tutorials I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
The controls feel. I didn't know. I hadn't quite settled on the controls. I initially thought, okay, this seems like it's pretty freaking janky. Maybe I'll kind of come into my own here and kind of figure it out, and I hope eventually it feels natural. But my initial response was, yikes, these controls are just crazy. They seem a little floaty, slippery, really fast. So my initial impressions were kind of all over the place. I did like after the tutorial. I thought the tutorial was absolutely terrible. But once you get through the tutorial and you go to the first kind of couple levels, I thought it got a little bit better. So, you know, my opinion is like down and up and down and up throughout the first like good chunk of the game, until eventually I got to a point where my opinion was mostly trending down. Like there was up and down stuff throughout, but it was trending down. And then eventually, my opinion, just kind of like George, my opinion has gone up a lot. But there's like, I mean, if you're looking at an opinion like a line graph, this doesn't really make sense. But my opinion has skyrocketed up, but it's filled with like these major holes in like fundamentally things that are wrong with the game.
I have a specific thing to ask you about your relationship to the game and other games.
Oh, yeah.
At some
So
point.
sure. So as for the controls and stuff, I mean, there was like one thing I learned from that kind of tutorial video that you guys posted, but I guess I just kind of naturally started acclimating to the different systems of like, okay, I'm noticing that there's, less momentum here and more momentum here when I jump at certain places and stuff like that. So, I mean, it just may be the way that I'm very, very thorough with like trial and error stuff like that. So I would die purposefully like dozens of times on certain things just to kind of see what the limits were. So, for me, it wasn't as big of a deal to kind of acclimate to the controls, but I can understand like it is a unique set of controls, so I can understand. But I like that it was unique. Like I understand that can be like a detriment of like this game has its own set of unique controls. But I thought that they were able to do a lot of good things with that. So I don't know. I think it's fine the way it was, but I think there's other fundamentally flaws in this game. Like, whew, oh boy, we'll definitely get into it. So yeah. So all right. So we're gonna go off then from there into. There's probably a lot to say about mechanics and stuff and level design. So instead of like combining a couple of these sections, why don't we start off with like the most fundamental stuff, and we can start off with the mechanics and the controls and stuff like that of the fundamental character. Does anyone have?
Sure.
Does this fit into what you're thinking, Jake, or is this
Like the questions that you had?
yeah, the questions that you have about
Yeah.
controls? Is
Like,
is it related to around controls and mechanics?
No, it's actually not really controls. It's more just like conceptual.
Okay, well, I mean, go ahead and throw
Um,
it out there, and then we'll jump in.
My question that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, I thought that you might be really into some aspects of this game because of your history with the Sonic series, because it is a very like momentum forward based
Yeah,
platformer, but it's in 3D, and I totally felt portions of that. I haven't played a lot of 3D Sonic games. Maybe just picked them up here and there, but so I don't know how they actually compare to the 3D Sonic games. But conceptually, just the idea of what it's trying to do seems similar
yeah,
to that. So that was
Which is-
just my question. Is like,
which is a great coincidence of
did
the shirt
that
I'm
come
wearing.
up?
Oh, I think it's funny. I think
Yeah.
it's funny actually because I brought that up actually when I discovered just Cloudbuilt a year or so ago, and I remember I was literally on Discord. I think it was just Graham and I, and we were just talking like, oh, this game looks interesting. Like it says it compares to some Sonic games I've played, and Graham's just like,
Oh,
he's like Sonic, no. So now it'd be interesting to really think what he thinks now that he's played it.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of like take that and go into the controls too. So yeah, it's definitely similar to some of it. It's definitely similar in aspects to the 3D Sonic games, especially the moments where you're like racing straight ahead and you're like holding down the boost and you're like boosting straight ahead and you're like maybe strafing side to side and picking up some of the like energy canisters as you go. That's like almost 100% the 3D Sonic games. And the difference is Sonic 3D game or 3D Sonic games are mostly that forward momentum stuff. There's not a lot of like wall stuff. Cloud Build
very
is like
linear.
yeah, like exactly. Like Cloud Build is very much like walls. Like it's all about walls. Like 75% of the game
Parkour.
feels like you're going along walls, right?
A lot
So
of geometry going on in these
yeah.
maps.
So they also do take a lot of inspiration from. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with Sonic design, level design, but they take the in Sonic. There's generally a high, medium, low route in levels, and so depending on your performance in the level, you will be able to go through these different sections like the high, medium, or low. If you're doing bad, you go down. If you're doing well and you're catching on to like quick things, or like, oh, quick, make a jump here, and you get like short notice, or like find the secret here and go up, and then you go on the up route. And they're really just kind of different experiences. In Super Cloudbuilt, they also have that as well. Like, depending on your mechanical prowess, you can go and collect like optional things and go through different routes. So that it was actually really similar in that way to Sonic. The moment to moment of going through the levels is quite different because, as we said, it's less linear and it's more about going along the walls and stuff like that usually. But yeah, from a macro design, they generally offer different routes to get to the same kind of end goal with options here and there. And Sonic, the options would be like the special. You go into like a special zone to collect Chaos Emeralds, whereas in Cloudbuilt, you're collecting like chips and stuff for different unlocks. So it's similar. In terms of
It's
go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that you equated it or compared it to like the high, medium, low routes in Sonic. I'm trying to think back to my experience because maybe that's what it was. Like I just remember thinking, oh wow, there's more than one route to get to the end. There's like multiple routes. I never really saw it, and it's possible I just wasn't paying as much attention that it was high, medium, low, kind of like in Sonic, but it was, yeah, it's interesting. It almost makes me want to go back and play some of those levels, because you do, not to derail too much from what you were gonna say, Grant, but like one thing that they do allow for you to do is somewhat exploration. It's not like a lot, but there are usually like collectibles, like there's letters A, B, C, and D, and then there's like a few keys
But it's
that
like
you can collect throughout the
route
level.
based exploration, right? It's not like an open world. It's like routes.
It's yes,
If
yeah,
you're good enough, it could be like, oh, just go in whichever direction you want.
Yeah.
I definitely can see that.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like maybe that's why a lot of times I wouldn't get everything, because that was one of the things that kind of frustrated me. I'm very much I want to get everything.
Completionist.
Yeah, very much so. And it's hard, like, especially
Yeah.
here with the game club. Like, one, I have limited time, and then two, we're playing like a lot of games. We have a lot of
Game is
games
meant
kind
to
of
be played for hours and hours to get to the
Right. It's supposed
levels,
to be a
but
dedicated
it's
game.
yeah, it is not
Yeah.
casual. It doesn't take long to complete the base part, but I think we've all learned that it's not too much of a casual game.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, anyways, that's, it's kind of a rambling thought because I'm just kind of formulating it as from what you were saying, but it makes me definitely interested to see, to kind of go back and play some of those levels and see how those routes go.
Yeah, and it's not physically, they're not always physically high, medium, or low, but generally if you want to, in Cloudbuilt.
Yeah.
But in
Mhm.
Sonic, the principle is the same. The high routes are generally more difficult to maintain, whereas the medium routes are more easy, and then the bottom routes are if you're really kind of failing, which is, so it's very similar in that aspect of choosing routes in Cloudbuilt. So, with that being said, though, so the mechanics itself, the first thing I want to say, it's a constant thing. Like after a certain point, into the game, I went once I hit my low point with the controls, and it started to shift, and I went, you know what? I'm actually getting the hang of these controls, and I really like them. The number one issue that I ran into was like, why do you have a gun? And why are there enemies? If they just would remove the combat completely, this game would be 100 times better.
I'm surprised you said it so fast.
Like, it's the worst part of the game. These
I
guys
thought I might be the only one who thought that.
No, it's so bad. It's just so bad. Like, if they are, honestly, they're really good at creating levels, and that's not as I say that, that's not exactly true. They're really not great at creating levels. They're great at creating parkour courses, right? Because the levels themselves are pretty uninspired. They're just floating apparatuses everywhere, right? But they're very good at creating these micro, like, here's a section, and here's an interesting way of doing it. And there's almost like no repeated sections of parkour, I guess, obstacle course, whatever, we'll just call it like parkour sections, right? So like they're all very unique, they're very fun and interesting in my opinion. I had a lot of fun with them. The level macro as a whole, like they haven't created interesting levels per se for me. I like obstacle courses, and so when I was going through, I was like, this is great. But then you would get into like a combat heavy section where towers are shooting you. And if the game was fundamentally designed for you to be dodging the shots or not engaging, like there are several parts, for those who've gotten like far in the game, there are several parts where you're like climbing on a wall and you have to switch to another wall and you got to switch to another wall. And then there's like turrets that are shooting at you. So the fundamental way that section is designed is if you get hit, you're going to fall down, right? But the turrets are made in such a way that the developer is assuming that you're going to shoot the turrets to stop them from shooting back at you, right? So the game plan is the optimal game plan, and the easiest way to do it is to shoot back and kill them. But for me, it would have been better as a fundamental design for these turrets to be invincible and for the game to be better tuned, whereas you're dodging, right? Maybe the turrets don't shoot as much. Maybe they're not as accurate. Maybe your jump is a little bit more responsive for jumping back and forth on the walls. They should have cut out the whole worrying about shooting turrets altogether and just made it an obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that
or maybe like you stun turrets with one single shot and then there's a rhythm to it.
Maybe
something like that.
Yeah, even if they turned instead of that, right? Like I think the whole aiming and shooting thing is completely counterproductive to the fact that I also want to think about facing my camera to where I want to parkour to next, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's the big disconnect.
Right, that's a big disconnect. So instead of making it like shoot them to stun, it would be like, okay, maybe if you boosted at the very beginning of your boost, like there's 5 frames of invulnerability where you reflect shots. So if you can time the shot hitting you at the same time that you boost, maybe you could reflect back and stun the turret, right, to make it easier. That would be a more like intrinsic, like that's a system that works together with the parkour rather than, I want to go here, but I need to shoot this here. That works against the parkour. These are 2 mechanics that are working against it, right? So like, and that's just off the top of my head. You could easily do something like that more integrated with the parkour itself. So that's the thing that really bothered me was, why is there combat in this game? This makes no sense at all, and it takes away from the experience.
Yeah, to me that just breaks down to I wish it had more rhythm, and the game just seems like it's striving for rhythm when I was playing it, and then that rhythm gets broken so easily, and it's hard to find where you're supposed to tie back into that.
Yes, if I can interject really quick, literally,
no, it's your time.
I had this one thought the whole time I was playing the game, other than like, why is there combat in this game? It's so bad. I kept thinking, like, repetitiously, I've almost never played a game that had so much fun dangling right out of your view, but like tried so hard to stop you from having fun. The second I was like getting momentum and having fun with the levels, and I was like, yeah, I'm really like getting into this. This is really good. And then it's like, boom, combat. Shoot these purple things.
You like charge up your thing to shoot a door.
It's like they're trying so hard to stop me from having fun with the game. And I think the game could be really fun, but it's like, oh, shoot these turrets. Shoot the purple thing. The freaking purple things, man. If the purple things were set up that you had to like weave in them and it was like, whoa, this is great. Like, this is so fun. No. The purple things are like fundamentally scientifically designed to stop all fun. These are the no fun purple objects. Holy frick, I hate them so much. Their freaking hitbox extends like 12 light years in the future. Like, it's absolutely insane. So
remember those discs? Do you remember those flying discs?
Yeah.
That would like those ones. You're like in one of the levels you're going, and all of a sudden it goes like, and it follows wherever you go.
Yeah. Oh yes, and if you try and turn around, it's like a big like disc.
Oh yeah, the discs that like fold up like that.
I'm so glad I didn't make it that far.
Oh my gosh,
that was
levels
a big. That
of
was
you guys
a big,
describing this is like going up and up in my head,
dude.
Hey,
fun
already
fact. Like hiked my anxiety up.
Fun fact: they took out one of those in Super. In the original, they had it in there. It took me a long time to get around it. I feel like I broke the game in order to get around it. It was like,
yeah, like let's.
Oh, you want to go on the other side of the wall?
Yeah.
It's like,
Okay, let's think about it. Like, you have these purple things, and the purple hitbox is like so
Like
freaking far,
mines.
right? And you got to shoot these things while you're parkouring. And like, I understand maybe some people are like, well, it's a skill
Or
thing.
even more
So-
boring, like
so-
see them before you're even starting and just point at them and shoot them with the home. It's like
Yeah,
Mines.
Yeah.
exactly.
there were so many sections
So-
where I was just like, okay, now I just have to stand here for a second and just click the mouse as I go from left to right for
Right,
you know, 20 degrees, and then I get to go play the game.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
exactly.
how does that add anything to the game?
So let me
Okay, go ahead.
hop in real quick in here because I agree with everything you said, Graham,
Okay.
except the purple things.
How dare you? First of all,
We didn't call
The-
them mines. I think
We
they're
are a
mines.
nation
the
divided.
mines, yeah,
Okay,
the purple mines or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do agree the combat, like the most fun in this game is like you guys have called it rhythm, momentum. You know, I was thinking in my mind like I was getting in this like flow state. I don't even know if that's the correct
Yeah, flows.
term,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like the most fun in the game was when you were able to get in this flow state and kind of dodging things, kind of being able to like figure out like the optimal route to get somewhere. Cause like I would try something and then I'd find, oh, if I go this way, I run out of, you know, my jetpack fuel. I need to be more efficient this way. Oh, and I can jump over here during this part. And then, you know, you take 3 or 4, you know, tries to get to the checkpoint and then boom, you figure it out. And then you like, you know, you do it that one run and you get to the checkpoint. You're like, this was amazing.
So
Holy
Yeah.
crap. I can't
But
believe
see,
I
it-
did that.
It's a practice flow state in this type of game, though. It's
It
not
is.
a reactive. That's
It's
where
correct.
like it gets really. We've talked about that, but like, what's that thing that we've talked about before, where it's like how much you have a
initial
chance of passing
initial
something.
fairness and
There you
inherent
go, okay.
fairness. Right.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay, I
Yes.
agree to a certain degree. I do agree with that. However, I think once you hit a certain point with the controls, it starts to become more reactive. I think.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's true too. Yes. There it becomes more reactive
I never
for
got
sure.
there.
And I think that
Um,
was probably, I hadn't thought about this before. That was probably where my curve started to change too. On my opinion of the game started to go up. Was I'm
And-
doing things quicker and yeah.
Yes, and the game and the levels themselves got harder as they went along, but you were still able to react to a lot of it as well because like it just clicked. Like there was a point in this when the game just clicked for me. But anyways, back to what I was saying. You get in this like flow state, and then every single time the thing that would kill. Well, I mean, I died to the obstacle as well, but I didn't mind that because it's kind of like what the levels are. But the thing that would always kill that flow state for me was you'd be like going through this level, boom, 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 you're making it, and then there's like 2 turrets just facing you. And you can't run because they'll shoot you and you'll fall down or they'll kill you. Or there's one where it was like an insta-kill laser, and you had to kind of like, yeah, like it was
kill lasers. What?
yes, there's one that's like a
Oh.
one-shot laser.
It
And but
locks
the
onto you
turrets
for a
themselves,
second.
yeah, the turrets themselves were never like that hard when you're just sitting there fighting them. Their shots are on a timer. At least it feels like they're on a timer. You can dodge them. You can outmaneuver them completely. But it's just like it has nothing to do with the part of the game that I personally enjoy.
No, it's
so
the
like you're
it's the
going
fun
through this.
police.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they're fun police.
Um,
How dare you have
in
fun?
regards to another thing is the level design. I felt like the level design was great, but I'm viewing the level as the actual course itself. I guess if you're thinking of the level as like the additional stuff,
If you're,
then-
I agree with you 100%. The levels were fantastic, right? I thought the levels were really well done, other than the enemy sections. But from a macro perspective, like the levels are great. From a micro perspective, the levels are great. What I was saying is, from a macro perspective, the levels are like really disjointed things, right? Like if they want, like, have you ever played Portal? Like Portal
I see what you're
has
saying.
a
yeah.
great
It's like
theme and macro and micro, right? The moment to moment
it's more
is
cohesive
good.
between
It's more
the
cohesive,
two, like,
right?
creating a world and a playground at the same time.
Right. And I understand that they want to go for something more abstract, but it does generally lend to you having more of a, oh, okay, we just threw these. It's like if an amateur went and made a bunch of levels and they didn't want to put the effort into making a level, they just wanted to make a course, right? It's much more of a course than it is a level.
I guess putting it that way for sure. Like they're not like there's themes, but it's not really a what I would call a traditional theme
Right.
in a sense.
Right.
But
But
yeah,
for the type of thing
um,
that they're going for, it's kind of almost necessary for it to be a little
Yeah.
bit like that.
I thought it was
mean,
fine.
Yeah. The purple things though, I felt they lended to my flow state because they were usually in the direct path that you're going to.
Yeah.
There's a few instances, like a couple instances that I can think of where they're in a different position than where at least where I was trying to get to, and I'd have to do a thing where I'm like running, look, shoot, then look back to where I was going, and you lose a little bit of momentum by looking away, but like you do it just good enough, and then like I don't know. I had no problem at all with the purple things. I actually felt that they added to the obstacle course. I specifically remember it's one of the later levels, but you're running up a spiral. And every so often there's like
Yeah.
there's only areas that you can go through, and the area that you can go through is guarded by those purple mines. And so as you're kind of going up and up through that spiral, you're having to like shoot them, and then you like decrease your momentum so you can make it through the gap, and then you speed up your momentum again, and then you shoot the next ones, and then like you're kind of doing this
I know
whole
the
thing.
exact part of that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's
it
level
was
10 in the bottom right blue area. I think I can't remember.
I can't remember, but it's like a
I
darker
remember that one
area.
kicking my butt
and
for a
it-
while.
Yeah, and it spirals up, and you're supposed to kind of stop and shoot them, and then you get like there's some red stuff you got to weave around, and then you got to like jump off one wall and
Yes.
jump back and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah, I
yeah.
know what section.
And it felt to me like those purple things like added to that obstacle because I don't know, it was like I don't know how to explain it. I just didn't mind the purple stuff. They're the purple mines. I actually enjoyed them. I felt like they added to the obstacle course itself. It was I didn't view them the same way I viewed the enemies because it wasn't something that inherently stopped your momentum. It stopped your momentum if you didn't execute it properly. Most of the time, there's actually a couple purple sections in a purple level or purple mines in that one level that's purple. It's got a lot of those like glass. They look almost like solar panels.
Okay, yeah.
You slide down them.
Yeah, you slide down them exactly. Yeah, there's a couple times there where I remember some purple mines where I was just like, okay, this is just ridiculous in here. It's actually detracting from my enjoyment of that. So I do agree the purple mines weren't always like executed as best as they probably could be. But as an obstacle as a whole, I disagree, and I think that they're different from the like turrets. And the turrets, I agree completely.
See,
that was just my view towards it.
yeah, I mean, on the spiral specifically, there is a section where you like pretty much have to stop and hug the wall and like turn and shoot. At least I had to. Like there was one, like there were some of them I could just shoot while I was spiraling up, but there was one section that I had to stop and like shoot two of them and be like, okay, now I can continue. So I don't know. I mean, I agree with you that most of the time they weren't a momentum kill, but a lot, or not a lot, but some of the time there was enough times where I was like stopping and being like, all right, I could do this obstacle course and shoot them while I'm going through the obstacle course, or I could do what Jake was describing and just sit here and shoot them all, and then I can like go and do the rest of the obstacle course and just have a better time because I don't have to deal with it.
You could, yeah.
Right? Like
yeah,
I was
could.
just like, why would I waste my time, potentially failing, even if it's like a 10% chance? Why? I'm just gonna shoot them right here. Right. So but the biggest thing for me is why I think that stuff should be removed is because I think the boost should be mapped to the mouse. Like I didn't like using shift. If there was no combat in the game, I would have unbound the shot altogether, and I would have just put boost on the mouse. I feel like it would have been more natural because it's now lending itself to you thinking more about parkouring and boosting with the mouse rather than having to push shift all the time. Because I felt like the shift, because the buttons you're pushing the most are like W, shift, and space, right? And I felt like it's getting kind of complicated with like going back.
Just what you press, just the same buttons for everything.
Do you not remap all your keys at exactly when you start a game? Because I do.
I mean, not necessarily. No, sometimes I'll remap maybe one or two things.
First thing I do.
But
yeah,
but I just felt like it was a little trickier to wrap my head around it when I was just like, man, I wish the mouse was just bound to boosting, and then I can like separate them in my mind better. But eventually I got the hang of it.
You could have put the boost on the primary fire and then made the right click your primary
That's
fire.
true.
There's
and
also an
then-
alt fire
and then
too,
just
though.
made a button press your alt
Oh,
fire
the
because
alt
it
fire.
Yeah.
doesn't seem like those are like you're firing those off a lot.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair.
I think
Yeah.
you could have done that.
So I could have
That's
absolutely done
different
that,
from
but
the first one.
yeah. So and again, I just think if they would have leaned more into the parkouring rather than the combat, then it would have been
Yeah,
better.
you
feel
just
like-
from a baseline, you think they should have just.
Yeah, I just think.
I agree.
Yeah, and you
I
can't.
feel like most games shift is sprint, space is jump, W's go
I
forward,
mean,
and that's what I'm used
you're
to.
not
and
wrong.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
I think you're all wrong because
I-
that's dumb to me. But
But
we
in
all know
most-
I'm
What
weird.
What do you use,
Well,
Jake?
Jake is
What-
a madman.
Jake is a
He
madman.
We've already
shows
been
off
through
his
this.
keys.
Yeah,
he'll be
This
like
is- this-
F11 is like sprint and like 0 on the numpads go forward or something crazy.
my light switch. I've rigged my light switch over here to be my
To
walk
jump.
There you go.
forward
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
on the wall. Yeah, it's a whole complicated
Um,
electrical thing. It's probably a fire hazard.
To what
Um,
you're saying, Gareth, yeah, I agree. The controls are not fundamentally different, but it's not very often in games where you're like feathering because you have to feather shift a lot to like go and sprint and
Mhm,
stop and sprint
mhm.
and stop, right? So I felt like that was just a little like I felt like if it was on the mouse because you're feathering it so much, like I think it would have just
Be easy. Sure.
been a
yeah.
little easier to understand. But I mean, again, eventually I got the hang of it mostly, so it's not that big of a deal. I just think if the game fundamentally, from a design perspective in every sense, was focused on the parkour, I think it would have been a greater whole rather than like these two aspects of the game that I feel were kind of counterintuitive to each other, or at least in the
Sure.
way that they were implemented.
Yeah.
So
I didn't have any issue with feathering the shift, but that's me.
Yeah, that's just preferences
fair.
and how you
Yeah.
press buttons with
Yeah.
your fingers.
yeah.
But
Is it
Um,
just
I wanna
Gareth
hear
and now
Dallin's
for mechanical?
thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, same. Let's hear from the man himself.
All right,
about
Dylan,
what are we still on mechanics?
lay it on.
Yes.
Tell us.
So, I mean, when I
Mechanics and
initially
gameplay.
picked up the game, it's actually funny that we were talking about Sonic earlier. I realized, now that I'm thinking back, I was actually playing a bit of Sonic Generation, Sonic Mania around the same time that I picked up the original Cloudbuilt, and I was playing them around the same time, and I didn't even realize I was like, similar, I guess, but yeah, it was harder for me to pick up concerning the mechanics, but I think the middle levels, this is similar to the original, where kind of like that middle area where it's very vertical with the levels. I felt like there wasn't really any enemies in those ones, maybe a few in the later ones. But yeah, the ones that had no stuff, like even in the original one, I'd sometimes go to the first level and just be like, let's see how fast I can go. And then just be just blasting. And
Yeah.
that was fun. And I have two favorite songs. I have two favorite songs in this game. Can't remember where one of them is, but one of them's in the more white and green area. And I think they did a new arrangement with the song. So I was like, oh, this game's crap. It doesn't have the song anymore. It doesn't have my favorite song. And then it was a new arrangement of it, and it was building up to it. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then
Actually.
I was just going, and it was really cool. There was actually one of the harder levels where after you go down and blast, there's this little ramp, and you just you like launch off, and then
I know
as soon as
which
you
one you're
land, you're
talking
supposed to go up this pillar, and then there's like two C's around the dome. So once you go up it, you have to go around, and then once you go straight, there's also a little window, and you have to jump perfectly through the window. Do you guys remember that one?
I'm jumping through a window.
Well, it's not like an actual, like, there's no glass or anything.
Well, I
but
know,
it's
I
like,
know,
oh,
but just
hey,
like a
I'm just
window.
going around, and all of a sudden, the walls all of a sudden end with another wall in your path with a little square. And it's just like, oh, and you have to jump right through it.
Oh, did you have to shoot the square? Did it have that like film?
Some of them you had to shoot
green
through
film
it.
or
Some
whatever?
of them you have to shoot, which that's completely different from the first one, which I'm trying to debate if I like the first one or the second one more with the gun. But there is one where they made that level so much easier because it took me forever to be able to have enough boost juice to be able to go up the pillar and then jump around and go on around the curve to then jump to that window. In the new one, they actually have another platform, that lower level on it. So I'm like, oh, they made this easier. Well, the kids these days will never know the oppression like that I had to go through just last year. Like, geez. But like, so that was one of the things that was easier. But like, I really liked the feel of the game. It felt really weird playing, but yeah, I felt better with a mouse and keyboard. I too a few times, especially the first one, I felt like I was gonna break my keyboard and mouse. This game more than any other game, I've definitely just like I just have to.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who felt this rage.
Yeah, no, I mean, and one thing that disappointed me was that I actually got pretty far in the first one. I have 11 and a half hours in that game. And I wrote down the ones, if you've gotten later on into the game, there was a fire level, like where everything was on fire, and then there was one that was more like polluted with green gas and things like that.
Are you talking about the ultra hard levels?
Yeah, the skull levels.
Yeah, the skull levels. Okay.
Yeah, there was one that's called Nostalgia and Desperation. I beat those ones. I remember those ones I beat those ones in the original one. But then as soon as I realized, I'm like, I really hope it's different. And then when I learned that those levels were the same in this game, I'm like, I can't do it again. I can't. I tried today to beat them, and I could see the ending on both of them, and I just couldn't. I still had multiple lives, but it's such a stressor. It was just really tough. So I only had 2 levels left in the original game, where then it unlocks a final last level. But
does that happen
anyway,
in this one?
Well, it's in I know for sure it's in this one, but again, we'll talk more about maybe that stuff that gets in the story more. But
well,
I definitely hit a wall at some point in this game. There was a wall. I think it was that spiral one that we talked about. That one I could not beat for a while. And since I had practice from the first game, I'll try to remember some of my initial experience. But I had a flow. The turrets. Oh yeah, the turrets in any video game that aren't on your team. I don't think I've ever been happy with them. But like I'll be cruising along, and this was the biggest problem for me. Is like I'm cruising, I'm flying, I'm doing great, and all of a sudden no platform. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, where's the platform? And I just die, and she's like, ah, screaming, and then I just keep spamming respawn, like just so angry.
Oh,
but then
I hated
the random turrets.
I respawned by accident so many times. Yeah, like I thought I was initially, because I have the habit of reloading, like take a couple shots and reload, and
again,
respawn is on R.
Remap your keys before you play the game, guys. Read what they do.
I remapped some of them, but
I did too. I changed some of them as well.
I didn't have any problem with that. That's funny though. I can see that.
But I would like
I saw that immediately was going to be a problem. I was like, oh, I'm going to press R to reload, even though there's not a reload in this freaking game, and it's going to respawn me. And so I immediately put that like way over. That's my washing machine is the respawn.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just to make sure,
Makes
just in
sense.
case you don't fall.
Yeah, I can't get over there too quick. I just wait for the game to naturally respawn me.
But yeah, I feel like there was definitely a lot going on at certain points of the game where it's just like I'm trying to stay alive and trying to see how much boost I still have, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you didn't see this one turret, pew pew, and you're down.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with the enemies, so there's a new enemy in this one where it's like a square droid, a square robot, and it like follows you and like zaps you a bit. But like the biggest ones that I had a problem with was the ones that are just kind of oval shaped and they have like a little laser sticking out. They follow your every moves wherever you go.
Yes, those are the ones with the shield.
Yeah, they have a shield most of the time.
I almost dropped the game because of that enemy. Okay. I can't describe to you
recently.
how fucking tilted I became when I was dealing with that enemy.
I was playing. Yeah, the enemies were really weird. The normal simple turrets, they're like Goombas. They're easy, but when you're not looking for them, they'll get you. They'll get you. They're not those little robot ones that crawl around. I think they're worse in the new game. But as soon as you knock them out, I'm like, I'm not going to be tricked by this frickery. So I freaking blast until it falls off the edge because they come back to life.
Yeah, that's what you would just move on.
They come back to life. Okay, first of all, I didn't know they came back to life, but
yes.
Okay, can we just talk about how freaking stupid of a mechanic is? You have these little crawler guys, and it's like if you don't kill these little crawler guys quick enough, they'll put a shield down and start healing themselves. So you have to sit there and now watch them heal themselves, and then when the shield comes off, you can shoot them again. Hopefully, you get them quick enough because they'll do it again if you don't. It's just like, who designed this, Satan? Oh my gosh! Like, what enemy design is this? This is a game about momentum and speed, and you have an enemy that's literally just like, you better wait for me to heal up, boy. It's like, I'm so confused. Why?
Why didn't you just move
on this?
You just leave.
I mean,
why didn't you just keep going?
But sometimes
the developer is playing the game also. He has to stop and heal too.
But sometimes you have there's again, you're right. Sometimes you could just move on, but there are some sections of the game where it's like, I'm about to do something tricky, so I want this platform clear. So I want to kill this
okay.
guy before I do it. But now I gotta wait
Those
for this
times
guy
it
to
was
heal
kind
up.
of annoying. Yeah. I see. I can think of a couple spot where you're sitting on like a small
Yeah,
little.
exactly.
The only thing too small is like a small little square
Exactly.
tile, and
you gotta
they're
wait
on
for this.
there.
I
and
missed.
there's like 2 of them.
I missed
There's
my
like 2
first
of 'em.
shot, so whoo, heaven forbid. Now I've got to wait for this guy to put his shield down. Little plus signs going up. I'm just like,
Just respawn and try it again.
I'm like, okay, all right. Well, sometime today.
Just reload. Just reload.
Spawn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just reload.
seriously,
It'll
I gotta
probably
run to
be
my
better.
washing
Close the
machine and
game.
beep. It's just, gosh dang.
I'll
Yeah,
let you- Last time you heal, close the game.
yeah.
But yeah,
it's-
I noticed that. So the mechanics that took me a while to get used to. I thought it was weird. I thought find your gun in the beginning, because I don't think that was in the other one. But I loved the shotgun mechanic. The normal first shooting is the same. It kind of hones in on your enemies a little bit. Like, that's fine. But yeah, if you hold it down a second one, in the original, if you hold it down a bit, it turns green, and it's just a slightly stronger blast. If you hold it in longer, it's blue, and it does a stronger blast. So I'm like, okay, like, I guess. So what I did was that the entire time that I had an enemy that would have to take multiple hits, in the original game, I'd be cruising, and it's like, there's a turret, I know it takes multiple hits, I am already charged on blue. Bada bing, he's taken out, so it was more flow. The problem with the new game is that, yes, the second one has the shotgun effect, so those little purple mines, no problemo. Thank you, developer. But why'd you make the stronger one have a delay and a little bubble, and then it explodes like a second later? It made it harder for me to continue on. Like, it was cool. It's like, oh, cool, it can bounce and blow things up, but it doesn't blow up on impact. It takes a delay. So it was harder for, like, hey, I'm cruising, and all of a sudden you hear that, and I'm like, I'm dead. And it's that homing laser that kills, like, it zaps you. It locks on you and just zaps you instantly. Like, those guys, it takes 2 shots.
And you fall immediately. That's why I call it the insta-kill laser, because there's no coming back from that.
the
You're
the
bound to
sniper
fall.
turret.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys have been obnoxious. But yeah, the ones that follow you around, those were a doozy. But yeah, I had to stop. I didn't have a problem with having to stop and kill the bad guys every once in a while. Yeah, those guys technically, a lot of these things, because I like them. There's a big story element about this too, about her, like, recovering from the war and things like that. You're trying to say something,
Okay,
Graham?
but like, yeah, okay. So I want to say 2 things now. Okay, so
Okay, but like,
okay, but listen, hold on.
Graham
here,
really
guys.
hates
Just hang on a second.
enemies.
I'm almost done with my thoughts.
Okay,
but,
please continue.
okay. I just feel like at one point there was some things that were that George said that I kind of resonate with, where it's like I should have made that jump. Like, I feel like there was definitely moments of that. There's 2 new things that they added in this game that I think ruined the flow. Oh, thank goodness, I almost forgot. There's no collectibles in the first one except for maybe the occasional, like, more lives, which I thought was confusing because I felt like there were no lives in the first game. Anyway, it maybe unlocks skins or something like that. But the whole goal was like,
Was it lives or
there's the green
skins?
line.
Those are 2 widely
Those are
different.
very
I can't remember. They're both the
Anyways,
same
yeah.
icon.
Go
Like,
ahead,
I'd collect it and see, like, more lives. I'd be like, I don't see an increase of lives anywhere. The first one was much simpler in that regard, where it's like if I found a thing for, like, a skin, I could collect it, but I just cruise through. It's like the goal was the end. That's how the story applies to it. You're just trying to make it through. In the new one, I like that they change it up where you can have collectibles, and it makes sense that you're collecting chips because in the story you're learning that you're adapting to becoming kind of like a cyborg. So it makes sense that maybe they're memories or something. Like, that's the affiliation with that. But for a while, because of my collectathon abilities, I'd be like cruising. I'm like, yeah. And then I look back and I see, like, frick, I missed chip A or chip B. And I just had to continue on. So it kind of took out some of the fun in that regards. I'm glad they added more replayability, but the whole thing of getting from A to B kind of was thrown off in the new one in that regard. But yeah, the game, I feel like I hit a wall. Like, I was doing really good in the game, and all of a sudden just there's a big difficulty spike for me, which maybe it was just because I've played the other one. But I think I've pretty much mentioned all the things that I've done. I don't know if you guys got as far as the final levels, where one of the skull levels, literally, there's one area, there's no platforms. I still to this day don't know where.
Hold on, are you continuing on, or is this the end of your thought?
No, this was like my last thought was again
Okay,
about
sorry.
mechanics. How sometimes there's
I just want to interject
no
then
platforms
before I forget. So continue.
you guys can say some things that I've already talked about. That's pretty much most of what I was going to say about that. some of the changes, how so something that you guys are didn't like in this game. I feel like the first game kind of did a little bit better in some ways.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So you mentioned, I'm glad that you mentioned how the mechanics of the shooting work in the first one when it comes to charging up. Because now I hate the mechanics in Super Cloudbuilt for combat even more because they actually did a better system in the first one. Like charging up
I
the
like
shot,
shotgun, though.
charging up to the shot to shoot stuff that takes multi hits because you're like prepping a shot makes so much sense. It sounds like so much better for flow. The right click shot that like it was just absolute garbage. You just like would right click and it was like the delayed
It's
explosion.
the little blue.
Yeah, like
ball,
I
right?
used it,
It
but
was
it's
just aiming.
it's freaking trash. Like it's really bad. It should have been like a
Barely
power
used.
shot. I personally, after the first couple levels, I never used the shotgun shot ever again because I thought it was freaking terrible. It's
Those mines, man.
It's way too inconsistent
Yeah, maybe
to use on the mines.
maybe that's why you really.
No, it's way too inconsistent because it's a random spread. You have no idea if it's going to actually kill all those mines or not because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So you could be running along.
Well,
and
you
you're
don't
like,
want to snipe with it.
I'm not saying you're going to
wanna get
snipe with
kinda
it, but
close.
sometimes you can get bad RNG, and some of the shots are more heavily skewed to a certain area of the reticle, right? So I used it several
Interesting.
times where I'm like going through. I'm like, okay, I'm going to shotgun blast these purple things, and it's like, oh, it didn't kill this one because only one or two of the things hit when I need 3 shots or whatever it is.
Interesting.
So, but
I didn't have a problem when I was close enough, but
Yeah, I didn't have a
maybe,
problem
and
with it
maybe that was
either.
my problem as I wasn't close enough. But it's just there is a layer of RNG even if you're close. So I just said frick it, and I just said, okay, it takes 2 shots to kill these things, and if I aim and shoot, it will be 100% of the time there. So, but it's disappointing that they had this charge shot ability. They should have either kept that or regulated that to the right click, but instead they have this really garbage right click. So that's a little disappointing.
yeah, I don't think the blue beam. I think the stronger the charge, the less it would hone in on your enemies. I think the blue one actually didn't really hone in them as much. But
the other thing
Any other
was
thoughts? Okay.
yeah, the other thing was slopes. They just need to delete slopes from the whole game, like, or just fundamentally change like the ramps.
What do you
like
mean by slopes?
slides? Like
Oh.
the
Slides?
sliding that they do. Like there, I know for those of you who got to the end of the game, there's this one level where you do a triple slide thing, and they don't
Whew.
connect properly at all. Like you can jump right before you get off the slide for a boost, or you can jump just a second after you get off the slide. There's like different timings you can do, but they're so freaking inconsistent with getting you to the next one. There were so many times where I would like go off one ramp and like slam into the freaking side of this other ramp instead of going on top. You'd hit it and fall down consistently. And I tried so many different timings, so many different like, oh, if I boost here and then jump here, and I'm trying to like play with the timing. No, it was so inconsistent. It was unbelievable. Just delete ramps.
See, I
from the
didn't.
whole
I
game.
know. I know
I had
exactly
my
which
first
part you're
game over
talking about.
there. I had my first game over there. I lost all my lives on
Yeah,
that
it's-
one because I was trying to collect the stuff too, and that's even riskier.
Yeah, exactly. You have to go to the side ramp to collect the little chip, and I said, frick that.
Yeah.
The exploding
See,
spheres
I didn't
that
have-
are rolling down, those things
That's-
get my
that's
heart.
what kills
That's the
me the
most
most.
stressful thing. I feel like it's like, God, I'm coming because I'm about to die. Like it's bad, man. I
Yeah.
think of death every time.
Yeah. See, for me, connecting the slopes in that part, I know exactly which part you're talking about. Wasn't too bad for me. The bad part for me was you had so much momentum coming off that last ramp
Right.
into all this stuff coming
The
down
red stuff.
that I always died. Yeah, I always died. Like
Oh.
I had no way of controlling where I was gonna land. Like I was just
Yeah,
yeah.
once I got
so
past
that
the
was
ramps,
the hardest for me.
I had no problem. Like I was able to like hit the ground and jump over a section and just kind of turn your momentum as you like turn to the right. I had no problem with that, but it was the ramps itself were just a bloody mess. But that does
power ups a lot. Okay, continue.
the power ups. What do you mean? Like boosts?
Oh, so the first game doesn't have this at all, but there's so the first game doesn't have it at all. There's things that you can use. You can think of them as like edibles or something. You can change your gun. You can change your boost. You can add more lives. You can add
What?
more. You didn't know this?
I did not know this until now, dude.
Oh my goodness! What? Literally, if you hit 2, there's a whole thing of your inventory. It made the game so much easier. I never used it because I was stubborn. Because I'm like, I played the original. I didn't
Gram's
use any of these
face.
things.
What the
Yeah,
Dude,
there's like,
I did not use them at all. I didn't even know they existed.
yeah, you know what?
Are we
Yeah,
even
you know
playing the
those
same?
lockers?
Did we play the same game or different game by accident?
Maybe you played Cloud Built and I played
I don't
Super
remember
Cloud
this
Built.
being
Bro,
brought
you
up.
remember at the end of the levels, there's
Ultra
lockers.
Cloud Built. Is that what it's
Yes.
called, right? Ultra
Yeah,
Cloud
there's
Built.
those lockers. Some of those lockers have lives, and some of them, I guess one of them has skins if you collect all the chips. But a lot of them, they say like, here's extra health. Hey, how about this one? You can be invisible. Like they have those. They're really hard
Invisible?
to collect all of them. They have
That would
one
just
for
make the game
invisibility.
harder, but
That
yeah, I
sounds
didn't
awesome.
get it at all.
I
They
think
were
you
consumable,
used them,
though?
George, because I saw you got the achievement for like using 1 or 2 or something.
Oh, then I must have
George
by
clicked
accident.
some buttons by accident. Sounds
Are you
like
sure
Yeah.
that stuff's not just automatic? Like if you unlock it, like
Oh no!
That's-
Once you go to the screen, it has empty slots for your weapon and for your character.
I
and you
feel.
can
oh yeah, I
fill-
remember
you can
getting the
fill 'em all
shield
up.
thing and then equipping it, and then I went and played another round, and it was not the shield thing; it was the missile thing. I was like, okay, well this doesn't work, and I never ever brought it up again.
So they're
Trying
like
to think.
one-time usages. They're like if you want to use an extra boost or a better gun thing, you use it per level.
So-
I'm pretty sure it only has a one-time use.
Oh
So
wow!
never
So I
use them
equipped it in the
consumable.
tutorial that I got it in
Stubborn.
basically, and fucking wasted it. Great.
Yeah, I was an original purist, so I didn't like to use any of them.
Okay.
I used one of them once. I think it was I used one where it says "Give me extra lives," and then I beat it 3 times later. So I'm like, well, okay.
Okay,
So I
so
guess I didn't need all that.
I
but-
see. Just FYI down. Generally, it's called consumable when you have like something in game that you consume. It's just consumable. So that's
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah, that's fine. I ju-
in
yeah.
in the in game.
yeah.
Oh,
I must have
Um,
used one then, and then
That
I don't
sucks that
know.
they're consumable.
That is kind of weird. Yeah, I had no idea. I feel like I've been lied to, so that's great.
well, I still want to play the game more because I do like the gameplay. It's very different from other stuff.
yeah,
It's very
It's a deep
different.
game.
I-
There's no denying that.
Oh, it was
Lots of replayability if you really like the concept of trying to figure out everything in these levels and
Yeah.
get faster.
I
If you count as a platformer, it's the hardest platformer that I've played. If you count it as what
Oh,
some
it's
of the people identify it
definitely
as
a
a platformer.
oh, it's
but
definitely a
platformer's the
platformer. I
hardest
would
to
say,
play,
yeah,
but-
for sure.
What do you think of the alternate levels? Oh, finish your thought first, then I'll ask that.
Yeah, so
What do you
I
think
just
of
wanted to say
alternate
something
levels?
quick because it was brought up a couple of times. I haven't said anything about it yet, but the fact that the live system exists is also like just the stupidest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the first one, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's
I died
when you
a
said
bajillion
that,
times.
like honestly, that kind of blows my brains. Like there's so much like fundamentally wrong with this game, like I said at the beginning, but there's so many like the core is like done so right. It's like they took this like beautiful pizza and they're like, look at this cheese pizza, and then they were like, yeah, what if I like
cheese pizza.
what if I just as an example? Come on, let's calm down now. And then they
I'm listening.
and
You got my
then
attention with
they
pizza.
started punching freaking holes in the pizza, right? I'm not talking like they put the wrong toppings
pizza.
on, right? I'm talking
Okay.
like they took this pizza and they like punched holes in the pizza. And it's like, whoa. It's not like this is pineapple on your pizza or anchovies or something that you just don't like. It's just that it's like you're doing it wrong,
There's a
man. Like
hole.
there's a hole in the pizza. Like why did you put levels or lives in this game? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like there's so many like random things that are so wrong with the game, but like the pizza itself is so good. You just like eat the slice and you go, "Oh, the slice was so good, but it's too bad it was half a slice." Like it feels like something is fundamentally wrong here.
Yeah, I want to say on that, I don't have much else to say going forward, period, is that I could tell this game was really well built when I started playing the game, but
Well, it's cloud built.
Yeah, it's cloud
Ooh,
built.
He said the thing.
But it is so geared toward, like, even right off the bat, I think somebody who is just so interested in the over the topness and the replaying and speed running and getting perfect at super obscure weird things, and less so of like, hey, here's a game that like you could gradually get better at and enjoy. I feel like the contrast there is like really high. Like there's not a good entry point into it, especially for somebody who maybe is not as skilled initially. There's just a lot of there's a big wall,
Right.
and I think that all those other things, all these other little things that we're talking about
You could almost say
with
that
the design,
the game's like a series of walls that you have to
yeah,
get through.
definitely.
To jump.
But all these other
There's
things
around.
like the life
There's
system
constant.
and all that, like they just feel like they're extra taxes on the lower end of that. And
Right.
because if you're actually on the upper end of that, those things don't matter at all, because you're probably trying to beat the whole thing in one run. You're not putting down checkpoints, and you're almost probably, if you're amazing at the game, from what I can tell from just watching videos and stuff, you're probably skipping most of the environmental and turret like things. Like you could just maneuver yourself around the level so well that those things aren't going to be an issue. So it feels like they've taxed the bottom end of players more than the top end of players in that sense, and it really just doesn't make sense to me that they would not want to onboard people better onto the game.
Yeah, and
I
that
kind of
sorry, Dan, I'll let you go. I just want to say something really quick. That's basically that phenomenon is basically the cost of having a high skill floor, right? That's what it comes
Guess so.
down to, right?
Yeah, I did notice there was a few times, since I'm not skilled by any means. It's just that I almost have 20 hours of gameplay combining the games together, that the faster I went through the game, the easier it was. If I tried to speed run it, there was a few times where I got a groove and I was speeding. I skipped some of the bosses. The ones that enemies, the ones that follow you, if you keep going, they eventually lock off.
Mhm.
But there's the areas where they loop back around, and then you like, if you stop any momentum though, the game punishes you instantly. I was going so fast through this one level, and then my character, I misjumped and I grabbed the edge, and I'm like, oh, whew, I almost fell. All of a sudden, the honing guy just went and just like landed on me and killed me. And I'm like, I've played this level in both games. I did not know this guy existed right here. Like, it just seems like it just punishes you. So like, I do feel that about like the lower end people. They do get punished because I tried to dabble in that. I got in the right mindset and I said go, and I was blasting through it. I'm like, this is the furthest I've made it in this level. This is amazing. And then as soon as I started to like doubt, as soon as I started to like be like, oh man, I'm not sure about this spot, I got punished instantly. Like it was, which there's kind of a story part of that as well, but it's just so punishing as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I wanna build on what you were saying, Dallin. Because and you know, like we've said a couple times before, like this is a game that has a very high skill floor, and it's very, very, very punishing. Like it's a very difficult game. But it's very difficult, but it's also
Is it
aside
though?
from the enemies.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I don't think it's. I think the learning
So-
curve is high, but I don't think it's the game itself is that difficult.
Yeah, so this is what I
Later
was
levels.
trying to say.
Except for, I mean, the skull
Aside
levels,
from the
but-
enemies, it's very difficult, but also very, very fair. Like the game is 100% dependent on your execution. And I think and the part that I loved the absolute most about this game is while I was learning the levels, I was getting frustrated. Very, very much so. But I felt such elation and such a sense of satisfaction after I beat the game, or not the game, the level. Like after I would beat a level that I was struggling with a lot, and I would find the flow for that level, or at least the flow that worked for me. There was something so fun about like just weaving through all these obstacles and jumping from ledge to ledge to ledge, and you find the optimal path, and you're like, oh, I used to run out of boost by here, and the next little like fuel thing was 100 paces away, but my execution has become so optimized that now I still have half my boost left before I hit the next fuel recharge thing. Yeah, and there was something so satisfying and so gratifying about that. Like that's the part that I absolutely love about the game, and that's when my enjoyment of the game just kind of started going sky high. And then I'd hit the next level, but because I had just experienced that in the level before, it motivated me to kind of learn the level after that. I'm like, okay, I knew I did it in that last level, and this new level is the hardest level I've played so far, but I know I can do it. And then you do it, and that will
Right.
motivate you for the next level and for the next level. And so yeah, it's very, very highly dependent on exact execution for a lot of stuff. And I don't know. There was just something so satisfying
Well,
about it.
that's what I'm
That's
saying.
what
Yeah.
I'm.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying about like I don't think that the game is difficult, right? It's just you have a long learning curve of acclimating to the controls because once you acclimate to the controls, you realize that like okay, it, I was battling more of the controls than I was battling the levels itself. Once you get like a better grasp on the controls, then you start to hit those levels with a different perspective, right? It starts, because my initial response was when I go through a level, sometimes I was just happy to have it done because I was like, oh man, like finally the jank is over. Like it's like I barely janked myself through this level and I'm finally finished, right? But then eventually, when I started getting a better handle on the controls, it became less about like, oh, I stumbled my way through the level. And it's like, no, I executed my way through this level, right? I did the things that I had to do, and I'm going to do it again on the next level, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I got more to say about that because
Sure.
my thing is also not about the difficulty is too high of this game. Like obviously for me it's very difficult. But I totally think that given more time to play the game that would have went away. For me, it just would have been a lot more time. But my whole problem is the onboarding experience of not knowing anything about this and coming onto it because and there is a playground section, right, that you unlock almost
Mhm.
immediately. And they're like, hey, you can go in here and there's like all these weird angles and stuff, and there's really no objective. You can just go in here and just mess around. But I think that's part of the problem is the game doesn't give a person who has no idea what's going on enough time to actually get invested in feeling some like portion of that
Right.
the joy of what it actually feels like to play the game at a good level. It doesn't have a smooth ramp of like that's fine if you run into a high skill cap like later on down the road and or maybe even like bits and pieces here and there like off the beaten path, but the game has almost no like soft onboard
Yes.
for making
There's
you
no
feel
bunny
like there's a
slopes.
point in actually spending the time because you would have to like play a couple of the levels and be like, oh man, I suck at this game, and then go back to the playground and realize all these other things and just spend so much time. So it's asking you to take a gamble on time investment
Yep.
if you're actually going to like what the actual end result of playing the game and the feeling is, rather than like showing you what it could be and giving you a taste and enticing you to keep going.
Right. You're
That's what I felt.
You're 100% right. So what they should have done is they should have had a not garbage tutorial to show you
Very hands off.
they should have well no it just should have been more guided, right? Like having you explore
yeah.
these ruins.
More fun levels first of all.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but hold
Yeah.
on,
At
hold
the
on.
beginning.
Yeah, so like they should have had a more linear tutorial that like fundamentally brought you through basics, right? Like not having the jetpack stuff. And then you get the jetpack at the end and then you do a little bit with the jetpack. And then they should have, instead of having a playground. So I don't know if any of you guys have played a fighting game, but here's a good and bad way of doing fighting game stuff. In fighting games, they always have like a lab. They call it like labbing. And you go into like
Yeah.
this thing and you can like do anything you want and practice anything you want. And you can set up the AI to do certain things, right? For a new player, the lab is like not a good idea at all, in my opinion. I think you should never go into the lab. What is good for a new player is a tutorial set that goes, you push A to punch, and you push B to do the medium punch, and then you push C to do the heavy punch, and then it's like now you can push this button to do another thing, and this button, and then it like has a checklist of things the player goes and does. It's like, okay, now that you understand this, now do a light, medium to heavy punch, boom, boom, boom. And what Cloud Build doesn't have is they don't have that. They don't have like here's a Portal-esque level that we've set up like a test chamber of like go ahead and jump from this low platform to this high platform by utilizing this wall. And that's the whole level, right? And it's like, okay, good, you did that. And if you don't understand and get the mechanic of how the momentum from jumping off the wall works, you'll never get up. So you have to learn that fundamental rule of how the combat work or how the movement system works. So then, okay, you clear that. So then they should have had like 20 or 30 of these like tester levels that are very focused, teach you something very specific, and then that would help raise new
And they're also
players
satisfying
because you're working through something that's very focused and linear, and then you will be able to make it to that high skill floor, because the high skill floor is totally fine, but you like Jake is saying, you need to get players up to that if you want to have it up to that. Like Cloud Built couldn't exist without this high skill floor. So it has to be there, but you also have to onboard people. The sandbox, throwing new players into the sandbox does nothing. Like I went into the sandbox initially and I was like, I don't know what I'm even supposed to learn here. So this is useless to me. Why would I come in here? This is only for like the top players to, push their limits, right? So they should have had something better on a tutorial perspective to getting players to where they needed to be. So I 100% agree with you. It's just for me, I was able to acclimate outside of that. Like I was independent of that. I was able to get there, and some people will, but I think most people won't. I think it's difficult to overcome such a barrier to entry of that kind of skill floor. And sorry, Dallin. So to what you were saying, Jake.
I was just
Dallin's
gonna
been holding his
say-
finger up for like a good 10 minutes.
AT phone home.
Workout.
Do it.
You made me think about one of the things that helped me most later on in the game is something that I had to teach myself. Once you latch onto the wall, I forgot that that's a thing. Like if there's an area that I can't do, I hit space bar and then I latch onto the wall, and you're drifting ever so slightly, but you can shoot stuff. Well, as soon as I try to continue
just
on
look
again,
around,
your character
probably.
just falls. Or if you hit spacebar again, you jump. So I was like, no, what you have to do while holding space, you hit boost, you hit shift, and then you can continue on. I had to teach myself that. I felt like no tutorial or anything taught me that.
Right.
The biggest thing where I'm really resonating with you guys right now is the alternate levels, which I think was maybe my biggest dislike between the two games, is that it's like, oh, you beat the level normally. Well, now you could beat it with one hit, you're dead level. Like you can, like, I thought that was cool where it's like, all right, it encourages me to go real fast through the level. Like these guys, I can't handle all these turrets. Gotta go, go, go. The problem is that there was the ones where it's like, oh, you did the thing that the game wants you to do. You use your pack. Well, punishment. Meaning the one where you have to use the angles of the walls. I did not know. I thought that once you get to your highest point, that's when you jump. Looking at that video, no, not when you get to the top. Right before you get to the top where your momentum is still going, that's when you jump. And I'm like, did the game tell me that? And I just did not know.
It did
because,
not. No.
Yeah, so I have not completed one level with that boost stuff where it's like, when you get to the end, it's like you use too much of your jetpack. Like, I was like, you know what? The reason why I like this game was because of the fast boost stuff. So I'm going to play those.
Right.
And like, so did you guys ever tamper with any of those alternate levels?
So hold on, Gareth. Did you
Like
want
the
to
challenge levels?
before we move on to the challenge levels?
So-
you wanted to say something, Gareth?
There was one like tutorial bit that just popped up. It was, I don't know if it's the first level where you encounter the red zones that take your stuff away.
Yep.
Oh,
But there was one jump in there where a message pops up and it says, you have no boost. You need to maintain your momentum, jump such that you hit the wall past this yellow line. And it's just a thing that pops up very briefly. And you jump and get past the yellow line, and then you're able to jump again and get to the
Oh yeah,
get past the wall. Yeah, it's just like out of nowhere there's a tutorial, and something like that would have been very helpful at the beginning instead of where
Yeah, and I think
randomly
that
was.
only happens if you like fail the level
Oh,
like
maybe.
completely, because I was watching videos of other people playing it and those lines weren't there. And what bothered me about that is I thought those lines were going to give me boost because they're in this red section in
Yeah.
the first level that you play them in. And so I'm like I'm like, okay, well my boost is gone, but if I like hit these, if I was coming at it from like a rhythm thing, so I'm like I get a speed and then these lines are spaced in a particular way. I'm gonna like get a rhythm of hitting the boost when I'm supposed to. And after like 15 minutes of realizing that wasn't the case, I was like, I finally saw the little bar up top that was like, oh, you have to jump past the yellow line. I'm like, okay, well, then these other lines that are on the thing are completely arbitrary because I'm
Yeah.
not even able to hit the wall on the other side properly to complete this thing. It was just, yeah, there's a lot of confusing crap like that.
Yeah, better tutorial would have helped this game a lot, I think.
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dallin, did you have something that you were saying?
Oh no, I was able to throw in my other idea in there about those alternate levels.
Oh, yes.
but that was a good chat.
The-
that
the-
was.
oh,
Can I,
I didn't touch any of the challenge level things.
I
You
did.
got to those by following the blue glowy bit
Yeah.
around.
Yeah,
and-
blue
Yeah,
or
I had a
gold.
heart attack when those were introduced, and I was like, if you have to do this to complete this game, I'm really not completing this game.
The final stage of the game. I'll get to it when we talk about story. I'll talk about it. But the final stage of the game. I'll get to the last one. You have no jetpack.
We should probably just get into story.
We should talk
We're-
about
Okay, hold on.
I
we
do have
should
a quick
probably
question.
Move things along.
I did want.
Quick question.
Go ahead, George.
Well, I was just gonna see if anyone here beat the skull levels.
I beat 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went into 1, and it was at the point where I was like finally starting to really enjoy the game, and I had beaten everything. I was like, okay, like I initially I saw those skull levels and I said not a chance. But once I beat in the game, I was like, you know what? I might give these a shot. I haven't gone in, I went in to do 1 for a little bit, and then I was just like, okay, I'm gonna take a break because I've been playing for a while. I think I will go back though and see what they're like. If they're like heavy combat, I'm just gonna drop them. But if they're just like fun parkour challenges, then I'm gonna be like, okay, let's do it. I'm down. So I didn't
There
do
is
them
some
yet, but-
combat in a couple of them. I tried them. It was getting towards the end of like the time that I had to kind of play the game, so I definitely do want to go back and see if I can beat them. But hats off to you, Dallin. Those are exceptionally difficult. They're definitely.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that created more stress for me was because I tried to beat. I beat, like I said, I beat the fire one and the toxic one in the original. Yeah, they're very similar to both games. In this new one, it was just I was so close. I could see the ending in the new one. I'm just like there was one day when I went to hang out with my siblings. My entire day after I played this game was ruined because I was so heated afterwards. I'm like Dallin, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I just got my butt handed to me from this game. I just can't get over it. It was so the game is just so tough. And I dedicated like 3 hours one day, and I'm like, I can't. I have to step
Didn't
away
we have a
from this.
game club conversation where you say you don't get like tilted or upset by game stuff? I feel like that was like a thing you said, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean I don't start like punching things or like think I'm gonna break something. But when something happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was so close. Like
I will say this. There's not very
crazy,
games
though.
that I
I don't know.
dream about, but I dreamt about this game.
Really?
I had dreams
Oh.
about this
it's
game.
your Obra Dinn.
While I was in the
really?
there you go. While I was in the midst of it, I remember a dream, and I remember like I was trying to get to the I won't explain my dream, but
It sounds
just
fascinating.
basically-
That's interesting.
yeah,
Um,
one of the few
But-
games I dreamt about.
Before we move on, I do want to talk about the challenge levels. I guess they're like it's just a level again with a rule. Like you got to follow a certain
Mhm.
rule, right? So one of them. So I did several of them, and I actually quite enjoyed the ones that I played. One of them was like a pacifist thing. It was like you can't shoot. And I was like immediately just devastatedly disappointed that like the whole game wasn't like this. I was like, they even had the idea to make it like
I forgot
a
about that.
I
non-combat route.
forgot.
So that was a little disappointing. But I played through the level and I was like, this is great. I can just focus on parkour the whole time and dodging around stuff. And it was a lot of fun. So I might go and do some more of those, maybe.
In that level, were there no purple things, or did you have to figure out how to get around them?
So I don't know if it was fundamentally different, but there were definitely mines in that level that you had to just go around. And I don't know if it's like, oh, well, this level was built in mind of not shooting the mines, so you could go around them. So I want to say fundamentally it wasn't built for a pacifist route. You just could do it, so they applied that challenge to it. Because there were certainly points where you have to like slow down and go over some weird places just to get around. But you know, it was nice to be able to just focus on the parkour itself. So I don't know. So yeah, I think overall, yeah, it was just I think the controls are really good in general. As we said, you just really gotta get a better tutorial. Like the pop-up windows with text for this kind of thing is not how
They
to
did
do
not
it.
do the trick.
Yeah.
And they go away real fast. I can't read real fast, so I wasn't able to read all of them sometimes.
Yeah.
This is actually, I know we're not even done with the podcast yet, but this has actually been really eye-opening because if you guys remember for our last meeting, I was choosing this one, Cloudbuilt over Super Cloudbuilt because there was community stuff.
Other way around. Super Cloudbuilt over Cloudbuilt.
No, initially,
No,
he was
initially
gonna
he
do
wanted-
the first
Oh,
one.
oh, I see.
Oh, wait,
Initially,
so
yeah.
there's a reason why Cloudbuilt is still receiving updates even as of like October last year. I guess whoa, time flies.
It's been a
But
while.
like it's been a while, but like there's a reason why people praise both with very positive reviews. But I wonder if there's a reason why the original Cloudbuilt has a more dedicated fan base after hearing what we've talked about.
Maybe. I mean, the live system will definitely pull me away from trying the skull thing. So, I mean, there's only so much dedication I can have. Unless there's a mod, maybe there's a mod out there that you can get that will remove the live system. But the live system is just so counterintuitive to the whole
I
thing.
wouldn't judge anybody. I've thought about that. It's like, is there some way I can kind of cheat this? Like,
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
I thought
my
about it
mental
too.
sanity isn't worth this.
Yeah, I thought about it too. It just doesn't make sense. It's a game about
There's a
mastery.
checkpoint system.
Yeah, there's a checkpoint
Yeah.
system already. There's no, and you can even make your own checkpoint. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not conducive to what they're trying to do. So I don't know. It's weird. But okay, that was a huge section. That was an hour and a half of talking about the game movement. If anyone ever doubts, sometimes we go into conversations and we go,
we kind of rolled level design and we kind of rolled
Yeah.
a lot
We
of stuff into
did.
that. Basically,
but
we just need to clean up with story,
it is-
and
Yeah.
I think we can
yeah,
hit the showers.
yeah. It is funny though. Sometimes we go, well, we have enough to talk about. Well,
'Cause I need one.
yeah, apparently I can smell you from here. Yeah. So we killed that whole section to death. Is there any?
I don't mind if other people, if we do get to story, other people can talk about stuff. But I've done a lot of stuff concerning the story, so I could be the
I wanna
last person
hear-
to talk about it.
Yeah.
I want to
so
hear what you have to say about it.
So
I don't
think
know
you should be the
jack
first
about the
one.
story.
Yeah.
Wait, Graham, you were.
hold on. So before we move on to story, we haven't
Graham.
officially kind of gone. Is there anything else in level design that people want to talk about before we move on to story?
Kind of already been said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that the level allows for some really good flow. I really like how a lot of things end up connecting in the level, even though yes, it's just kind of floating platforms and floating walls. If you didn't have that chasm in there, there wouldn't be any risk and failure, I guess.
Well,
So
you just
I
put,
do
you can put, like acid floors, lava
or
floors,
acid, yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like
So
that.
some sort of thing that prevents you from kind of falling down.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already said it. I really like the way that the courses were built. I really like that there were multiple routes. Yeah, about it.
The only thing I want to say is I thought it was interesting that so many of the levels just had huge swaths of stuff, and I don't know how intended this was, but there's like sometimes in levels you can just skip a whole bunch of stuff because of the way that the levels are set up, and you can like the way you boost. It's just like, oh, I skipped this whole section because like I
think that's how we designed it exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That's why I was saying like it just feels like all this other stuff is there to only annoy the people that suck at the game already the most.
Yeah, you certainly do get punished if you take your time. If you are speeding through and you're skipping stuff, you'll have a much better time. And that's when my enjoyment of the game started to go up when I started realizing I don't have to do these
just
certain
not worrying
sections.
about like actually sitting there and trying to read the stuff. That I will say I can't say much because I didn't play as much, and I was just gonna not say anything. But I did the best time I had with the game was actually just like putting the game on silent, putting my own music in, and just going.
Yeah.
And then
Cool.
I started to get it like I was not stopping and looking at anything. I was just going. I was like not paying attention to what the game was trying to tell me. And of course that eventually would have caught up with me. But the thing that caught up with me before that could even happen was that all my experimentation that was actually leading to fun and a little bit of progression was then gated by having to start all over because of the lives.
Yeah.
So
seriously.
Oh, actually, what you said, Jake, although it's completely unrelated, it reminded me of it. The one complaint I do have about the level design is that a lot of times I just, especially in my first runs of the levels, I didn't know where I was supposed to go. I would like get to some place, and then it's like the whole, Pulp Fiction John Travolta meme where you're just like,
yeah,
where am I? Where am I supposed to go? And I wish there would have been some more like signposting or signage or something in the game inherently in the levels.
Yeah, there's
that
like
would
some
kinda let
arrows
you-
every now and then, but then again, you didn't know. Like sometimes I felt like you looped back around to a place you'd already
Yes.
been, and you're like, What?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
like we said, and real quick, like we said, is after a while, the game does start to become reactive, um, as opposed to just simply trial and error. But then I would like stop because I was like, okay, I actually think I'm going the wrong way, and like sometimes, sure enough, I would be. So that was kind of my only gripe with the level design. The actual levels themselves allowed for some great parkour. They just needed more signposting, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is gonna kind of roll into story. Like, I 100% agree with you on that. I think there was not enough like signposting. I think if they were to make a spiritual successor to this game, they could easily put like, you know, checkpoint area, and then after those checkpoint areas you always have like a clear branching path. You could even put holographic arrows that are like red arrows, green arrows, and yellow arrows for like each of the routes, so that like players clearly know. Like, it's a little meta, and maybe you could do it a little cleaner, but I'm more on the side of just show players like what
And then
you're
the
doing.
secret route is don't follow any of those. So just
Maybe,
go,
I don't
like,
know.
right over the
Yeah,
top of all
sure.
of it.
Like, maybe
There
you
you
can do
go.
something like that. But like then players can clearly see, oh, I could come back and do these sections again and take a different route, right? Like, it would be
Mhm.
obvious
And
to
then
everyone.
maybe get the collectibles that are hidden there.
Right,
and, like,
exactly.
Know that that's what your goal is because you didn't take that route last time.
Right. But in the way it is now, like sometimes I didn't even know like if there was another route or where I was
Sometimes they're
supposed to
very
go.
arbitrary.
Yeah. So
like, in
they
conveyance.
honestly, I hope the developers make some kind of spiritual successor, because, and I understand that they can't really do that because they were going for something abstract because of the story, which is, what we'll touch on, I guess, now. But like, I just felt like, I feel like a spiritual successor with what they've learned from, hopefully what they've learned from these first two games, could be really good. I think it could be a really, really good game, but they need to move away from some of the bad decisions they made. And in my opinion, one of the worst decisions they made, other than the terrible combat,
Is the
is
gun.
is the freaking story. I thought the story was terrible.
Oh.
I thought the story. Okay, sorry. Let me amend that slightly. I thought the story was really mediocre and bland. I thought the writing was a train wreck. The character literally says like, "I was scared and confused." It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen the clip from Futurama where the devil is talking to Fry and he goes, "You can't just tell you have your characters say that they're sad. That makes me angry." And it's just like, you can't do that. That's not how you write a character. There's so many times where this chick is just like narrating how she feels.
That was like a storybook narration for a child.
It was just, yeah, it's just terrible. Like, there actually came a point in the game, and maybe the story gets better eventually. I highly doubt it. But there was a point in the game where I just stopped listening to the game, and I just was listening to some other video on the side, and I wasn't even like, I didn't even realize there was really much music in the game, because most of the time I just didn't want to hear this, kudos to the voice actor, but this terrible voice actor, or this, maybe they're new. I don't know. I'm an amateur voice actor myself, so I'm a little sensitive to that. So I understand.
So send your hate mail too.
Yes, I understand. This is not nice to do, but I didn't like the voice acting. I didn't think it was very good. I thought the writing was terrible. So I don't have much to say on the story at all. I understand she was, I understand what they're kind of going for, and all that, and, abstract stuff and whatnot. But I wasn't having any of the story. It was completely lost on me 100%. And I just, after the first little bit, I was like, I don't want to hear this anymore. And so I listened to other stuff. That's it.
Yeah. So what you're saying, I 100% agree, and it's like the old adage of storytelling, which is show don't tell.
Yep.
I felt like the story was completely disconnected from the actual gameplay.
Yep.
There was very little connection to it, that, as far as I could tell. I'm waiting for Dallin, and I'll give a few more thoughts, but I'm waiting for Dallin to kind of explain the whole story for us, because I know
Dallin's deep
he'll
in the
definitely
Super
do that.
Cloudbuilt lore.
Yes, exactly.
It all went
And I
over my
do-
head.
The moderators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dallin.
I do like that there were four. Well, maybe there's more. I wrote down like the paths. I like that they called them even like after trees. I finished the maple, ash, oak, and hawthorn endings. or the paths, or I don't know what you would
Well, there's
call it.
two. There's two per side, right? And then there's the middle one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because those are all the ones that I did.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
And it's kind of like some are, I guess I classify as good endings, and then some are kind of as bad endings through realizations that she makes throughout the level. That like she would say like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to like learn from this from this level. Maybe I'm supposed to learn perseverance or whatever. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was kind of like, it was just like, I remember hearing that and just thinking to myself, what? How did you get that from this? Like, I guess, yeah, maybe there's perseverance because you like finish the level. And I don't even know if perseverance was it, but like, it just felt, I do like that there were multiple endings. I just wish that they were somehow more connected to the actual gameplay. I wish that there was like more things in the way that you play the levels. And I think this game could have benefited a lot from like cutscenes, some cutscenes to like tell you about the war that she went through and all that stuff. And I can tell Dallin's wanting to talk, so I want you to take it away,
no.
dude. Because
I was
the levels had
validating.
had
okay.
nothing to do with the story, and the levels were all basically the same. You were doing the same general thing in every level, and
Yes,
there
yeah,
also there wasn't an order that you had to do the levels in.
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
So it made this
just
like weird, disconnected, botchy story, and
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was gonna say before Dallin just jumps on this and rips
Well,
us all
guys,
apart.
don't get too excited.
oh, don't worry,
I'm getting
Dallin. We're talking
excited.
about the story of this game. I'm not
all that I was
excited at
gonna
all.
say is that I felt like like for better or for worse, whatever, the developer made a game without the ability to like George said, conveyance of the story. There just was no caveats for the conveyance of the story to come across besides the way that Graham disliked it, which was just like the really bad voiceover and narration.
There's supposed to be logs somewhere. When
Yeah,
I
I
was doing,
mean, and
but
and just
F2 or
yeah,
number
you can
2.
read, and those are just copy and pasted of what the character says in the hallways and whatever, as far as I could tell, what little I played of it. But yeah, again, for better or worse, the way that he designed the game, or he or she, I'm not sure, they
they
there was not a lot of room from what I saw to actually show that. So I wasn't expecting anything from it, even though I didn't even really get there with it. But
And I do
Take it
gotta
away.
give them props that they try to come up with multiple kind of realizations or things that the main character came to. I like that a lot. I just wish they would have delivered it better. But yeah, anyways, go ahead now.
They weren't different enough. Okay, yeah, I can jump into it. So for
Tell
those
us
that
all the
know
lore.
me,
Tell us,
Yes.
the lore.
Why is
So,
this game
back when-
actually a masterpiece in the story department?
Now I don't feel like saying anything at all. Well, get ready.
Oh,
Oh, he puts his glasses
don't worry.
on.
I'll take my
Ooh.
glasses off.
It's not even
uh,
Dallin's final
fine.
form.
I guess I'll keep them on then.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So don't get too crazy. But I actually think the voice acting might be a little bit better in this one. And I think they maybe redid some of her voice lines for some parts in the new one, or in the original one. So I think she actually maybe. I couldn't tell. For some reason, I thought it was better. Maybe it was growing on me because it was, again, 20 hours into the game. But so I feel like some of it, I tried to look up actually lore and stuff from like a wiki page, and it's still pretty open. It's obvious that this guy was focusing, or these people were focusing on gameplay and a different type of experience than really story, and we all
Yeah.
recognize that.
Yeah.
It's a girl that's coming to terms with the fact that like she's unconscious, but yet somehow her conscious is floating around, and she's trying to cope. So she also alludes to the people in charge of this company, which is interesting, like the hospital, because there's like other doors across the hall from her before you go in and are locked into her room. So I'm just like, I wonder like how many other people there are. I think she mentions that there was a war, there was a battle, there was multiple people that were hurt, and they're trying to bring them back to life through cybernetics, and she doesn't want to cope with that.
Do they mention like it was a war against machines, right? That's Do they mention like what the war was?
It's a war against machines. That's how it's conveyed in the why you fight machines. That's conveyed in mechanical stuff, I believe. So you could think of it as like an Overwatch thing in a way where they're fighting mechs, and then some of them end up being enhanced with these, I guess, enhancements. But then some of them actually in war are damaged to the point. I think she's actually missing her hands, possibly. She's actually missing her hands or part of her arms or something, which is weird because then there's a cutscene of her going like, it's like easy with your hands, like you just plop it down on the bed, like
bloody
maybe she's already altered, but that's why it was cool that you collect chips in this new one because maybe it's actually her like bringing memories. To me, she mentions how the organization of whoever's breaking into mechanics, and there's posters on the walls talking about getting back to the new you, which is a nice new touch that the new game does. But they're trying to, in a way, butter up the fact that your life is horrible, but we're going to try to put your subconscious in a way where you can still live out fantasy, almost like a virtual reality, because your body might not make it through it, so we can at least have you living stuff throughout your days. That's why the first few levels in the middle column are like, they're fun, they're great, and I was like having a blast. And then it's almost like, okay, cool. And then she's like, I have to break out. So this is good, but where's this going? Why is there no end? So in the original, when you see the original, it's like clear where that first level is, and it branches out more. And then there's like clouded areas. And I'm just like, wait a minute. So this is kind of what my understanding from the game now is that she is slowly realizing that she's not in her real like body anymore. She's actually trying to cope with this new thing and realizing that her life's over and that she's trying to like be babied into thinking everything's okay, but she's trying to push past that. She's like, what are people trying to hide from me? And she's starting to remember. She's starting to go into like those foggy areas, which are now the rooms where like there's the room that's like corroded. There's an area where it's like on fire. Like I remember going to this one level, also everything's on fire. And I started really thinking maybe this is where she like died. So she like is starting to regain her consciousness through these levels. And so she's trying to remember things and she's trying to break out of these horrible events. So I thought that each level was kind of like maybe different orders that she was done throughout the years. And they're just alternated to where each level has a name for something. So it's like, this is maybe where on the battlefield she learned this thing and she's trying to get over these obstacles. Even the developer says that each level is supposed to be you trying to get over your personal obstacles. So you're like trying to get over these things.
I failed.
So we all did. And that's kind of what she's trying to understand. She's trying to get over it. And then when you beat the really hard levels, that middle column, the bottom opens up and it's super dark and like red and eerie. And you go down there, it's like the hardest level. And then at the end, you lose your jetpack and you end up going back into your bedroom, but that hallway is missing. That hallway's gone. So that's why I'm just like, yeah, these things didn't happen. These are like, this is in her mind is trying to cope and realize like, what is this organization trying to hide from me? And it's like how actually horrible things happened in the battlefield, that people died. You were up against these mechs. It seems like you were probably alone against these things and everything's falling apart. And this is where you possibly died. Anyway, she ends up like escaping. And anyway, it ends with her like, eventually her subconscious, she like falls through the ground. And as soon as she hits the ground, her body is back with her. She's like with her body again. It's like, okay, interesting. And then she travels through again. You have to do those annoying things without the jetpack, jumping around. And then we get to the end, there's like this big red like moon and this big tower. So symbolism to me was that the tower was like the organization and that she actually broke out of being like I'm not going to just be playing their game anymore, thinking everything's all right. There's a horrible thing that happened. I'm accepting that I'm like my new life. But then for some reason, some people think that the moon means that she actually like broke out of that mindset to the point that she died. So like it's not very spoon-fed to you, but when I played the game, a lot of that was like, I don't know, she's trying to reach out and get back her life back, her knowledge, and it's painful to her. That's why the mini endings of her like looking out the window and having hope about things, one of them she like turns evil or like is angry or something. I thought that was like, I was like, okay, that was not animated very well.
She's got a really creepy weird smile, very uncanny valley smile.
I think the whole game is just pretty much a hoshmash of her trying to like cope with her new body, and she's like angry about certain things, sad or happy, hopeful.
So one thing real quick,
anyway.
I think from like a story perspective, I think of like her consciousness or her spirit kneeling by her, and like you see like in her mind like kind of the levels. I think from a story perspective, that kind of conveys a little bit more. Because like now that I think about it, of course, this is all happening in her mind. Where else could it be? But when I played it, if like you hadn't mentioned this at all, like I would not have made that connection. Maybe I'm just dumb, but I would
I
not
think
have
about
made that
things like
connection.
that.
Yeah, it,
So-
it
Yeah,
made
but, like-
sense for. I understood that. Like, I understood that she was coping with, like, because you see her in the bed and you're walking through this like abstract place. I was like, okay, she's mentally like going through things. So,
Yeah, like
was it
I,
conveyed the best? I don't think so.
No,
I think if
it's-
the fact
the-
that I had to explain it like this, like no. Once I got it though, I'm like, cool. Like, all right,
I
cool.
like-
but that was tough.
Yeah,
to
I
think
actually
about.
like the story concept. I just think the execution was just not good at all.
yeah.
I can.
Yeah, I mean,
attest
like
to that.
soldiers dealing with like PTSD
Right.
is very, like we had a podcast about it. We
Yeah.
did the Spec Ops
Spec Ops, yeah.
podcast,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that deals with PTSD.
See, that was
wonderfully.
beautiful execution of a similar kind of type of concept.
Yeah, I liked the gameplay of this game more, but the execution of that one with story for a soldier.
I can see that. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I
This
like
gameplay
story
is
for a soldier.
very
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
more exact.
This
Right.
game was
Very
about the
different.
gameplay. Spec Ops wasn't really about the gameplay.
True.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Was she actually on the battlefield? Was she in Dubai?
There you go.
That's where it happened.
She
Was it
died after the
Mex?
first level.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you
you guys
go.
are ready for the deep lore now, guys. Get ready.
It's actually a crossover.
Yeah,
game
I don't
with
really have
Spec
much
Ops.
more to say. I tried to be somewhat detailed with the story without start being repetitive. But I just the first game I loved how like in the second one it's cool that she's like trying to break out of the building. Like she's trying to break out of like every time you beat a level a new wall opens up and she's like trying to break out. She's trying to escape. So it's like and accept this new thing, so these struggles. So I think they did it better in the visualization of the first one, but anyway, I
Yeah.
think you guys get the idea.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your explanation on the story. Like that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. Like the more you talk about the original, the more like kind of disappointed with this whole scenario I become because it sounds like they've
I'm sorry.
yeah, well, it sounds like there's like no definitive edition of this game. Like it sounds like in the first one there's a lot of things done better or worse, and in the second one there's a lot of things done better or worse. So like
Yeah.
do we need an ultra cloud built? Like can they come out with a third one so that we have like a definitive edition? But like I don't know.
Super.
We'll have
duper
Nintendo
cloud
do it.
built.
The new Super Cloud.
Yeah,
built with
exactly.
Knuckles.
With Knuckles from Dante. Anyways, no, I appreciate that explanation. That makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone have anything they want to add to Dallin's explanation there? I think that makes a lot of sense.
No, Dallin, thanks for picking this game and
Yeah.
ruining my my
Hey,
week.
I
No, I'm
was
just kidding.
ruined also, man.
Thanks,
This game.
thanks,
I don't know.
Dallin, for helping us weed this weenie out here who clearly is
Yeah.
struggling with video games.
I mean, this game is just another reminder of the type of games that I don't want to play anymore. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like I'm starting to lean more towards like I don't want time sinks that are based on high skill caps anymore.
I didn't know that going in.
It's
there,
starting
maybe,
to
so
it's starting to reveal itself, and I'm like in denial over it, but
It,
you know,
it could be
it-
that this just isn't like it could be that you still like those types of games, but maybe this just isn't the one that you want to feel like you're
yeah,
dedicating
that's true.
time
Maybe
to.
something that like hides that with other things very
Right.
well, you know,
Yeah.
like that can bring me in. Yeah, I mean that's maybe that's the secret sauce is like I don't know, putting enough things in there that you don't realize that you know that you're climbing this skill cap and
Like the whole point of a skill
just
cap
more
game
invested.
that you're investing in, right, is like your intrinsic desire to master it. Right? Like if
Yeah.
you're not intrinsically motivated to do that, then you're not going to
Yeah.
want to do it. So it may not be
yeah,
this
it's like
game.
Dark Souls is like incredibly hard for me, but I still fumble through it because
Right.
the world and the setting is just
Yeah.
enticing.
And you
know.
And I do,
you master it over time because of that.
yeah, and I also do want to add that parkouring and platforming isn't the only demonstration of high skill. Like there's other executions that you can do in other games,
Yeah,
and there's other types of games that require high skill. but it's of a different kind,
Right.
completely not reaction based, and so yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think this game just shows its teeth with the amount of time sink that a person who's not just good at it right away would have to put into it.
Yeah, because of the lack of
to
tutorial.
get the most out of it.
Yeah, you've got to like self-teach yourself a lot of stuff that could be easily conveyed through tutorials. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's all I have to say for closing remarks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So,
Tutorial and training level would do a lot. Not a playground, but an actual training level.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
There's a train going by.
here's
I'm
the
gonna
skill.
mute myself for a second.
Choo choo.
Practice the skill. Here's a new skill. Practice the skill.
Yeah. 100%. It would be
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, I think
Toot toot.
toot, toot. It's all good. Yeah, I think the train's not very loud, so it's not a big deal. But I think my thoughts on the game are I'm glad my opinion kind of turned around a little bit. I legitimately, genuinely have hype for a spiritual successor if they ever make it. Like, obviously they would have to like make it more in the way I would want it to be made, and who knows if that's the direction they'll go. Hopefully that's the kind of feedback they'll be receiving. But I would have genuine interest if they made another game. I would definitely check it out because I think that I think the core formula they have is a winning formula. So I hope they
Definitely.
follow it through. So
I hope the company's still around. I think that it's been a few years since Super came out, so
I'm sure they are. It's a small team.
yeah, apply, man. Work for them.
No.
They're not in America, I don't think.
No, I've got my
They
own.
need a voice actor, Graham.
Yeah, they need
Yeah,
a
there
better
you go.
voice actor. I don't know if I'm good enough to not be also bad and cringy.
Just do that one voice you were doing before we started recording. What was that one?
We'll keep that to off the record.
I don't think that'll work very well.
Yeah,
The mood of the game would change greatly.
dramatically.
The
So-
uprise of America and taking from our bonds.
Okay, so that aside, yeah. So we'll have,
They are making a new one called Sky Tracers.
okay.
Sky
Ooh.
Tracer.
Okay.
What?
Is it gonna be like Tribes?
Is it a
but in
parkour
the
game as
air?
well? I gotta look
It's
this up.
jump over the rooftops, scale skyscrapers, and fight off hostile robots. as you
Come
master the
on!
infinite depth of,
Get the frick.
of rocket
What if
parkour.
they make it? What if
my-
they make the combat good though?
No, frick
okay,
it.
get
I
this.
feel like
Have you
I've
guys
been,
ever played Tribes?
yeah.
Find
Okay,
and
what if
carve
it
your
was-
very own path through challenging courses in a frantic multiplayer race.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
multiplayer. What if it's
race.
like
that's
Tribes
kinda cool.
multiplayer, but like
I
on
think it's-
skyscrapers
Yeah.
and
Wow.
yeah.
If you go fast enough, then the turrets will lock onto your opponents.
Dude, I just feel like I got
I-
kicked in the balls with that whole sentence set up.
Wait, hold up though.
Dude, story. She's reliving her
Multiplayer
war scene,
racing?
man.
That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. It sounds sick. Just please, no combat. Come on.
Project currently on hold.
Okay,
oh
Oh,
no.
because they need to figure out why it's sucking. I'll talk to them. It's fine.
There you go. Apply.
Well, for my closing remarks, I want to echo. I echo a lot of what you said, Graham. I think we had very similar experiences and reactions to the game. I think the core parkouring system that they have and the controls that they do and their momentum based movement is just fantastic.
Yep.
Initially, I also thought it was jank. I thought it was bad. I thought it was unresponsive. And I came to realize that it's the complete opposite. It's sometimes well, I wouldn't even say responsive to a fault, but it's exactly responsive. It's as exactly responsive as you need it to be. And really, when you fail at it, it's like when I fail at it, it's my own fault. It's because I didn't do the execution properly. And when that clicked, that was a moment where it clicked for me, where I was like, okay, it's not the game, it's me. The game is actually very well done and it responds very well. And I just got to wrap my head around how to do this and do it better. Once I realized that, like, my enjoyment of the game, like, skyrocketed. I absolutely loved it. I want to thank you, Dallin, for choosing this one because I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. It's definitely not a game for everyone. But if there's people who I know, some people who would enjoy this type of game, I would definitely 100% recommend it to them.
I actually don't 100% agree that the game controls are like perfect in that sense that you're saying. I think there is a little bit of jank that needs to be tightened up, especially when it comes to like grabbing ledges. Like there's some weird jank with grabbing ledges. I think
I didn't experience anything with
it's
that.
just like it needs to be tighter. Like I just think the game, like I think the controls are really good and everything's really good as a whole. They just need to make it a little bit tighter, and it would be a more I don't know. I
tighter.
hate to use,
Tighter how? Like, what do you mean
just
by
like
tighter?
I just think it's
The interactions.
it's a little too floaty. It's the grabbing ledges is a
Interesting.
little too janky, and like getting up, like falling down on like off of ledges. Like if you're standing on the edge of like a ledge and you drop down facing this way, and your character's like snap grabs backwards, it's like, why does that happen? If I'm
Oh,
facing
okay.
180 degrees
That did
away
happen
from
a
this
couple
wall,
times.
right? Like there's a lot of
Uh-huh.
like little things that I think if they tightened up the game, it would honestly be incredible. But I think they're like 80% of the way there, but I think they just have a little work to do to make it like it's like 80% of the way, and then the other 20% feels like, I don't know, Euro jank basically. And they just need to like clean that up. And if they did, honestly, they would have a winner on my in
Well,
my
they're
opinion.
fixing it by adding multiplayer.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I
This is
guess
the
I did
thing.
have the ledge thing a couple times, but I mean more specifically about like the actual movement.
right. I'm
Like
talking
when
about that too.
the
I'm talking about the movement
momentum
too.
stuff.
Yeah,
Really? Okay.
yeah. I
Like
think it
the
needs to be
momentum
tightened
stuff
up.
for me, I think it was done great. I think it was.
I think it's
I wouldn't change really anything of the momentum and stuff.
I think it's
Like
really good.
I absolutely like the fact that angles matter.
Yep.
Like I haven't played another game. Titanfall is a little bit like it, but leagues away from what this game is. Like the fact that angles matter, the fact that like when you jump off the wall, whether you do it at the apex of your momentum or before or after, will yield different results. Like it just gives you so many options, and it's hard to execute them all properly all the time, but I love the fact that it gives you all these options. And
Yeah.
anyways, that's those are my closing
Yeah,
remarks.
I feel you. I feel you. Okay.
Gareth, do you?
All right, boys.
Is
Yeah,
it just
I thought it
Gareth
was-
and I left? Yeah. So go. Yeah, go Gareth.
I can see how it could be fun. It like we've been talking about, it would take some time to get to be fun. I didn't put in enough time to get there, whereas you guys did. I just felt the level, the way they set up the levels didn't make me want to do more levels, just because I didn't have fun the prior level. So why would I do more? I have other games I want to play too. Got a lot of backlog.
Yeah.
So that was tough to fight against. Having watched that video about how the game is truly based on momentum and physics makes it more approachable, I think. Like I understand more about what you're trying to do and how you can do it. So I should go back and play another level or two, I think, and see what I think now. But yeah, it's a tough recommendation. It's worth trying, I suppose. You might be into it. Who knows?
It is a tough recommendation, despite
Mhm.
how much I liked it. So
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that leaves me. Makes sense. First one to talk. First one to end.
first one in,
I kind of like
last
that.
one out.
Last
the
one to
tradition
end.
Of that. Last one to end. Sorry about my speech.
Please.
English is my
First
first
in,
language.
last
Forgive
out.
me.
No, go on.
Okay. I considering recommendation. People that are like heavier gamers, people that are like really into a challenge and wanting to try something new. I'd say go for this game. Besides that small group, probably not. Like some of my family have seen me play it a bit, and they're like they don't know what's going on. So I really did like the game when I picked it up initially for the original. It took me a while to get into it as well, but the music for the most part I really did like. you guys know me, like music and stuff. The sounds of certain things, like it was really good. It definitely feels like an indie game. It feels like a very like, but like I feel like with some of the things we've talked about, like if it was like maybe a bigger title, like I could see some of those things being fleshed out a little bit more. Who knows these days with some of the AAA companies,
True.
but I really liked it, and I heavily dislike that no matter how hard I try, like I sometimes can't beat it. Like it's so. Anyway, so this is a game I want to keep going to because now it's like now I have a bone to pick with it. It's like I'm gonna get you one day. So this is a game I'm gonna keep on going back to throughout the years. But yeah, I really did like it. I definitely need to try some more things that I haven't done before. Now with the new momentum thing, but overall liked it, and I liked it more than I thought I would have.
Nice. Well,
I think you
fantastic.
liked it as much as I thought that you would. This is a very Dallin game to me. So
yeah.
Platformers,
hearing that
baby.
you're gonna keep continuing going back to it is like totally what I thought would happen with you in this game. So,
Yeah,
That's a good point.
you've been
thank
profiled.
you.
You've been profiled.
Platformer. I'll put that as stuff on my social media. Platformer.
All right. Well, boys, it's been an excellent conversation. It was a great pick, Dallin. Thank you very much. Again,
Thank you.
it was a game I wasn't even aware of, so I'm glad that you brought it up and to our attention. It just makes me want to play more Sonic games, though, realistically. But with
So
that,
there's only one more thing of business.
we got one more thing. That's right. But we have
One more thing.
to go. Gareth,
Drum roll, please.
please
So,
tell us what the
the
next
next
game is.
The next game we'll be playing is a little different from all of the ones we've chosen so far in that it came out a week and a half ago,
Whoa. Okay.
and it is called Death's Door.
Yes,
Oh, baby.
Woo.
Yes.
Here we
Nice.
go.
I'm so happy.
I don't
about
know
this.
what, but good reception so
it's-
far.
Yeah, it's available on Steam and Good Old Games and probably elsewhere too. It's
Nice.
a isometric action. I don't know how much platforming it is actually, but they call it an action platformer. People are likening it to old school Zelda games with a Dark Souls world feel.
Oh.
I'm
you
excited.
You take the
Yeah,
role
I'm
of a
excited for this one.
crow who works for
Oh,
the Grim Reaper organized company,
I've
and you're
okay, I have
supposed to
heard
go
of this.
around and
Death
collect
Inc., yeah.
souls. Yeah, I don't think it's Death
Death
Inc.,
Inc.
but
I'm so pumped.
Something similar.
yeah.
Crow Souls.
Okay, so you know what's
Yeah.
hilarious? I actually installed this game like earlier this week, and I was like, I should get around to like sitting down and starting this. And this is
Well, now you can.
this is brilliant.
There you go.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cool.
Excellent
Nice.
choice.
Bit different. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah,
it's
we don't
it's
even
gotten,
need to play it. We already know it's great.
It's great. It's gotten fairly good reviews, and so we'll see how it goes.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's
Alright.
Excited,
fantastic.
man.
Thank you.
Very
Okay.
excited for it.
Well, I hope you're all excited as well. We will be playing this, or we'll be having this discussion at the end of the month. For anyone who's listening for the first time, we'll be playing throughout the month, and at the end of the month, we'll discuss it. We'll be having a little bit of a formula change coming after our next monthly episode, but we'll get into more of that at the end of that episode. But hopefully you will join us too. That is a new game that's just come out, so hopefully there's some excitement around that. You guys are welcome, the audience, or you're welcome to play along with us and discuss it with us at the end of the month. But regardless, we will hopefully see you next time, and we thank you for joining us. And we'll see you all in the next one. See ya.
Thank
You
you,
guys.
everyone.
See you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Take care.